Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome from the World Center of Racing as we bring you back live to LSRTV's continuing coverage of the 2015-2016 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series for Round 7 as we bounce back from an off week. Just 1 week ago on the 11th, we get set to knock out the final 4 rounds of this championship with tonight's Daytona 250 on LSRTV and iRacing Live, and we're happy to have you along for the ride. As always, myself, Evan Pasoko, joined by Jacob Seelbert, Andy Kessler, and RSR driver and analyst Thomas J. George topside in the LSRTV booth, and down in the production trailer, LSRTV's executive producer Laura Lawson getting us on the air. And tonight, Jacob, back at it. We got Monday off, a little bit of football action, so we're back to business, and we come to Daytona. We're looking forward to Daytona tomorrow night to close out the Pro Series, but first these guys get to do battle in these B cars for 100 laps, 250 miles, and what should be an exciting race because this championship picture is starting to grow clearer every time we go by.
Yeah, it really is. When you talk about wily veterans versus some of the emerging stars, and you look at names like Chad Cole and Daniel Eberhardt being towards the top of the standings, it's really been a fun season so far. And for anybody that may not have picked up on it, over the last 2 years we've done the whole RSR thing here on LSR TV. I really love Daytona. This is one of my favorite tracks to call on the entire service. It always produces some outstanding racing, and I think honestly the B cars are some of the best in the business when it comes to the draft here. It's going to be a whole lot of fun to watch tonight. You need help, you need dancing partners, and at the end of the night, you hope you haven't burned enough bridges to where you can have a friend to work with and get you to that checkered flag. A lot yet to be decided, but certainly, Evan, a lot of storylines, I think led by the fact that Boomtown Sim on top of the board with Anthony DeBarro and Mitch Rollo 1-2 here early in qualifying.
Yeah, speaking about qualifying, that's one of the interesting things about the series and at Daytona as well, as we get a couple of pictures from the open qualifying session that has just now under 5 minutes left to go. These guys are out there 2 and 3 wide, pushing in the drafter to get the best lap time that they can. 100 laps at Daytona, though, Andy, sounds familiar. That's exactly what we saw on Friday night in the iSuperspeedway.com Racing Series season finale. That was in the Cup cars tonight, in the B cars that we know very well that they drive very differently. But when you come to a plate track like a Daytona, like a Talladega, that gap is a little bit thinner, but these cars are very different than those Cup cars out there. The draft model's a little bit different. You're going to have to do different things with the cars, and a lot of guys like the way that these handle a little bit more than those Gen 6 machines, which means that they can get a little bit more brave, try a little bit more things in these cars that they feel maybe have a little bit more stability underneath them, which is good news for us if we're looking for a good show tonight, and I think we are.
Yeah, these cars are, I would say, a little bit more stable than the Cup car. They're also a little more forgiving as far as the handling goes. So I think these guys really enjoy these cars at these play tracks, and with a full field like we got tonight, I can't expect anything but the best from out of these guys tonight, and it should be a good one, and should be a lot of action, some 3-wide action like you just mentioned here in qualifying.
Yeah, they've already gotten that off. And as Jacob mentioned, your provisional pole sitter at the moment, Anthony DeBarro, working with Mitch Rollo to go to 1-2 on the board. They're going to use up every second of the 3 minutes and change that is left on the board. And they're looking at much more than that, though, for this race, Thomas. 100 laps at Daytona. Not an overly long race, but it's not a walk in the park either. It's going to involve some description of pit strategy and some description of on-track strategy. How you attack this race. Do you want to ride right up front all night long? Do you want to hang out at the back? It's always fun to come to Daytona under the lights. It has a little bit of a different atmosphere, but it is almost refreshing to see this kind of a race be run under the Daytona Beach sun. You're looking at a track temp of 111 degrees Fahrenheit just to get the night kicked off before much rubber's even put down. As a driver, what do you think is going to be a strategy here that we're going to see played?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a set strategy for this particular kind of race, because whenever we go to Daytona or Talladega, everybody's strategy is different. Some people that get to start up front, they want to, stay up front. They want to stay what they think is out of the proverbial danger zone, if you will, in the middle there. Some guys, want to go to the back and just ride around and plan their move maybe halfway through the race or something, or just wait till the last 20 laps. So you're going to have to factor in a lot of different variables, and with the sun beating down, you're going to have to factor in who can save their tires the best, because it doesn't seem like it, but with this kind of track, in these kind of conditions, these cars are a little bit tighter than usual, and that could cause a lot of problems as far as drifting up into the guy next to you. And for at least the top 10 in the point standings, it's only it's a 44 point gap from 10th to 1st in the points. So you got to also figure the strategy of survival might just be the best interest of some of these guys, while others are trying to get their way back up in the points race too.
Yeah, we mentioned that although we do go to the 4 final races on the season beginning tonight, that is still plenty of time for a lot to happen in the championship. But it is a busy picture as we come into tonight's race for round number 7. Chad Cole at the top. He's joined by E.J. O'Rourke, Matt Lacrosse, who has also both been a victory lane on the season, sitting at 6 points and then 22 points back. And then you have Dwayne Vincent, Jeff Ward inside of the top 5. Those are all power names at any given week, but Daytona, the great equalizer, a track where tonight we could very well see a surprise winner, and these drivers just about out of time in qualified, which means we're getting set to hit the Hippies Paint Shop starting grid. So with that, we'll toss things down trackside for tonight's pre-race ceremonies and to Jaden Berkey for the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
And a big thanks to Jaden Berkey for getting tonight underway. The clock about to strike 0, the red flag get away from the flag stand, and with that, qualifying now down to a close, and we're set to get round 7 of 10 in the 2015-2016 Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, presented by Hippies Paint Shop underway. With that, we'll toss things down and take a look at your starting grid. A pole position, he's able to hang on to it, that 45-26, just too fast to tame, but it is going to be the number 9 of Anthony DeBarro, who will bring us to the green flag tonight, and his teammate will start shotgun on the front row in second. That's Mitch Rollo in P2. Nick Silver going to start tonight in the number 3rd spot for the driver of the 51, alongside the 33, Dale Rentz in 4th, and rounding out our top 5 qualifiers, none other than a number 5 machine of Dan Murray.
6-10 tonight. William Hale, the 62, rolls off from the outside of row number 3. E.J. O'Rourke up in the championship standings, P7 in his quest for victory lane tonight. Cisco Scaramuza starts tonight 8th. Brian Terry's 92 machine rolls from 9th, and cap off the top 10 with the 43, Doug Roth, the wily veteran.
The number 70 is Scott Eckers, who's going to roll off in the 11th spot outside of row number 6. That's the 27 of J. Randall Watkins. 13th starter tonight is Nicholas Orth. Daniel Eberhardt in the 90 car will start 15th, or 14th and 15th will be the 54 of Austin Yarborough.
And then Dwayne Vincent, the highest running driver in the points without a trip to victory lane, going to be 16th for the grid tonight behind Tim back on run number 9, 17th to Adam Benefiel, 18th to Jonathan Cadell, as well as Jason Swan and Jeff Ward, 19 and 20.
It's funny to think that you've got some of those guys starting back in the top 20, but they won't stay there long like Craft. Behind Ward, though, Tyler Herr in the 55 rolls 21st, Joseph LaPlaca 22nd tonight, Greg Omo in the 91, 23rd, 24th is the Deuce, Rhett McBride, and William Hartman in the 67, 25th.
Then you got Corbin Hemstreet, a guy we'll watch roll right through the field up here tonight in the 41. He starts 26th. 27th is the 21 of Matt Lacrosse. Justin Michaels is going to start in the 28th spot. 29th to Douglas Wyatt, and the 29 of Mike Rominger is going to start 30th.
And then to put a bow on the field, 31st, William Amaker, Stephanie Lassentine, 32nd, 33rd. Final driver to put down a time in qualifying, going to be Mike Kelly, and the provisionals going to be tossed out to the number 14 Monster Energy, Chevy David Comstock in 34th. Chad Cole at the top of the points, but almost at the back of the field. The Firehouse subs, Ford Mustang in 35th. Paul Fugate, 36th position. Tom Dryerling scheduled to roll off from 37th, and it looks like all 37 of your cars on the grid, nobody starting for the pit lane, at least at this moment. So we double up behind the pace car, and we get set to go at Daytona. It's a slick track. These guys know what they're doing, though, and we're getting set to get this one underway. It is going to be Anthony DeBarro, Jacob, that does get us kicked off. 250 miles on tap for this evening.
Indeed, and I think it's worth noting that a lockout of the front row, not only by Boomtown Sim, but by the special lymphoma awareness paint schemes that many of the RSR faithful are sporting tonight in honor, of course, of executive producer Laura Lawson. And, of course, we can pay more light to those schemes a little bit later on in this broadcast. But Boomtown Sim up in front, they're ready to take the field to the green flag. And for the start of tonight's Daytona 250 here on LSRTV, here's Evan Pasoco.
We're happy to have you with us on LSRTV and iRacing Live. It is the World Center of Racing, and it is round number 7 as the American Childhood Cancer Organization Ford Mustang GT Pace Car gets down and away in control topside. Anthony DeBarro going to take the green flag, racing at Daytona. The Daytona 250 underway to turn number 1.
It's quickly away to turn 1, and it's double file all the way back through the field advantage to the bottom side as Nick Silver gives Anthony DeBarro one heck of a push. Down into turns 1 and 2. Top 3 goes single file from the inside lane. It's DeBarro, Silver, and Dan Murray with now the 93 of E.J. O'Rourke trying to make it a 4-car freight train. Everybody's starting to pair up. Who wants friends now, and who's trying to go to the front? The answer right now, at least, the 9 and the 51, DeBarro and Silver, your first tandem to break away to turn 3.
And you see the number 5 machine, Dan Murray, started on the inside of the racetrack, inside the row 3, outside, not the place to be, at least immediately off of a restart. They get some momentum, it's a good challenge, but a 5 machine was able to jump up in front of the 96. Again, that was Rollo, who started alongside your pole sitter, Anthony DeBarro, on the front row as lap 1 goes to the books. He fell back about 2 car lengths. Murray jumped up topside, and now it's the number 5 Toyota, who leads the outside charge down in turns number 1 and 2. Below him, though, still the inside. The power lane, the 9 still clear, but you're starting to see the outside of the racetrack build up that momentum. And although they're not grouped up, just the 5 and the 96 together alone, going to make it back nose to nose for the race lead at lap number 2. Down to turn number 3, though, and he's stalling out, though, into the corner. Inside, going to hold it strong for the time being, but the outside grows every time we go by. This time, but a 4, throw the 33, the 62, the 85 into the mix as well. They're going to start pinching those guys on the bottom down more and more and starting to apply the pressure.
Yeah, we'll see this all night long with these cars. They'll really make the top side will make their move on the straightaways, really off the corner, and it's all set up by how that car that's doing the pushing gets on the bumper coming off the corner. See Mitch Rollo get a pretty decent run there off the corner, gets run on his bumper. You'll see him down there in the back straightaway, make some headway, but as soon as they get into that corner,
Caution flag gonna fly early in this one at lap number 3. It's Tom Dryerling's number 6 Chevrolet. Got some damage down in turn number 1. Trying to see the cause of this accident, though. It looks like Dryerling might be an innocent victim. It is. It's gonna start in front of him, kind of towards the back of this lead pack, though, where it all breaks out. I'm looking at the number 27. J. Randall Watkins, who's going to have the first little bit of problems here. It looks like down to turn number 1. We'll get the replay up for you in a moment, Thomas. It looks like, though, Watkins just checked up a little bit into the corner, and he got tapped from behind by the 83 and into the corner. He really didn't have much of a chance of trying to hang on to that car. It looked like just an accordion effect back into the pack as guys were starting to build up some momentum.
Yeah, and it's pretty much the same result you see at any big track like this where everybody's nose to tail, or, you know, if you go to a short track like Martinsville, whenever somebody's on your bumper, if you end up having to check up and the guy behind you doesn't see it at time, it just can cause a lot of havoc, and it caused the first caution of this race here, unfortunately, for those guys there. So, tough break for them, but hopefully they can get back into this and maybe salvage some points out of it.
I'd mentioned the 83 of Adam Benefiel, although it's kind of like a checkup on the freeway where the person who gets into the back of somebody is at fault. That it will be the case here. Adam Benefiel will claim responsibility for the accident, Jacob. However, it's hard to say that it's entirely his fault, just a victim of circumstances. The good news is he does not have a lot of damage on that Chevrolet, so he'll be able to come down, get any damage that he did receive fixed up. He will be at the back of the pack, but if you had to choose a caution to drop back on, I'd take one at lap 3 over any other one. It'll put him to the back early, but as you mentioned before we got tonight underway, about a couple of big names that we saw qualifying outside the top 15, outside the top 20, much like that Adam Benefiel going to be way back in traffic, but he knows how to get back up through it.
Yeah, he does, and a lot of these veterans do, Evan, so I'm not worried about it here in the early going. As long as there's no major damage to that machine, I think he should be fine. Obviously, we know how fickle the draft can be. It can love you in a moment and put you from 20th to 1st, or it can hate you and drop you from 1st to 20th. So, you know, it's storylines, comers and goers that we're going to be following all night long. I think the thing I was really kind of surprised at is the fact that we really didn't see a lot of movement among the top 10 here. In fact, only one of the drivers who started in the top 10 not currently there, that being the 43 of Doug Roth. Everybody else has managed to hang tough so far, but Dan Murray in the GameStop machine has looked really, really impressive so far to me, Evan. I think that 5 car is going to be a force to be reckoned with here the later we get into this race. He doesn't have a lot of drafting help here early on, but he's worked his way up to 2nd, and if he can find somebody that he works well with, I like that 5 car.
Yeah, we talk about the mix of finding a partner in that tandem draft, but as well, pack racing is going to be a big part of tonight's race. We mentioned that on the pole was Anthony DeBarro, and it was no surprise that his teammate was alongside him. Their qualifying times just separated by 0.02 of a second. So basically, that means they were hooked up, they were working together. Dan Murray faster than both of those guys in the practice session, but he was not that close to somebody else that would suggest that he was directly hooked up with somebody else. So that is a small disadvantage, but there's 2 cards that you have to play throughout the night after starting top 5. But again, we talked about not a whole lot of guys making a lot of moves early. Jacob, he did a good idea by jumping right up to the top side because he knows, although the outside not the place to be on a restart, which means that right now he's not going to be in the best spot starting on the outside of the front row, just because it takes the outside a little bit longer to build up some momentum on that high side, the longer way around the track as the lights go on for the base car. He'll be at a disadvantage now, but he knows how to work the draft, and I'm sure he'll have no problems topside. What those guys on the outside want, though, is more than 2.5 laps, because they were just starting to get around on the guys on the bottom when they had to back off.
That's exactly right, and that's going to be the key all night long, is, you know, the guys to be able to make that second groove work, you got to have some longer runs, 10 laps, 15 laps, to really be able to dice it up, and I think you'll see a lot of that shuffling. And I think, Thomas, you would attest to that. The longer we go into a run, the easier it is to make either lane work. It becomes more about where your car is good as opposed to which lane has the most momentum.
Yeah, and it just factors into the fact that we are going to have a lot more tire wear than we would say, you know, during a night race here, and both lanes are going to have their advantages and disadvantages. The bottom lane is going to be the preferred line in order to keep your position. The thing is, if that outside lane gets any kind of momentum, whoever's in front of you, they might be able to make that pass on you, but at the same time, they're at a disadvantage too because they can't go to the bottom because they're so close together. You could try a side draft off of them, but if you've got nowhere to go, it's not going to be able to help you too much.
It'll be the first American Ethanol restart on the night, and it's going to come just as lap number 6 goes into the books. The base car down and away, and Anthony DeBarro out early. Green flag back in the air. You always want to jump, not that big of one. And look at the 96. Now that 5 I mentioned, Dan Murray not going to be in that good of a spot. He'll drop way back with no support. 51, those slices to the outside of the racetrack. So no surprise seeing Rollo and DeBarro trying to get together. That 51 at Nick Silver, though, jumps out and kind of saves that 5 at Dan Murray, or he would have been all alone on the outside of the racetrack. Still not enough of a run, though, down the backstretch to pull an advantage over the bottom lane. It's Anthony DeBarro down to turn number 3.
I'm liking that move by Mitch Rollo on the restart to find a way to go from 4th and 2nd car in the outside groove to right behind DeBarro on that rear deck lid. Now the teammates are hooked up and able to play a little bit of defense, though the outside lane is going to be coming before too long. Nick Silver in the draft, coming to complete lap number 7, edges a nose out in front, and that's going to be our first lead change of the night. Nick Silver by 3/1000ths of a second at the start-finish line with a shove from Dan Murray to the point at Daytona.
And now the key is you get up there, you have to finish that run. If you and that number 5 machine want to get down in front of those guys, we see the 9 to 96, they're hooked up. That 5 machine recognizes that. He'll jump down to the bottom, and now ironically enough, Andy, the driver that jumped up that basically saved Murray from going way back on the restart is the one that's going to be left out to dry. He'll drop back to the 93 of E.J. O'Rourke. The 13, the 54 are with him. One driver out of line all alone just behind him at turn number 4. You'll find a 33 of Dale Rent's topside in a 3-wide scenario through the tri-oval. He has no help, but is basically slotting back till he can find a spot in the middle lane.
Yeah, there's nowhere for you to go when you're out there by yourself like that, especially in that 3rd lane. That bottom side, though, looking to start really packing up right now. You got a couple teammates.
Oh, contact for the race lead. The 70's in the wall. Big wreck at a turn number 2. They'll slide to the apron. No caution at the moment. The drivers involved down below the yellow line. We stay green for the time being, but there's a collection of cars down on the apron. It started with the 5 at Dan Murray up into the fence, the 92, the 51, the 13, and the 17 amongst the drivers involved. All of that below the double yellow. No automatic trigger caution flag yet, so we are still green at Daytona, and just like that, Mitch Rollo, Anthony DeBarro out in a different zip code in front of the field as half the field tries to get back up to speed.
Yeah, goodbye Gracie, I think is the label I would put on that, Evan. That all started, you'll see it on the replay right here, in the middle of turns 1 and 2. Scott Eckridge was trying to give Dan Murray a heck of a push to try and go to the lead. Murray drifted up a little bit high, and when you get these, Thomas, I think you can back me up here, when you don't line up these bumpers right, it just about hooks somebody, and that's what we saw here. They weren't lined up, the 2 Steel Horse cars weren't, and it got Dan right into the wall, and once you hit the wall, you're either going to get sucked it all the way around the corner, or you're going to come down the racetrack. Unfortunately for the rest of the field, Murray came down the racetrack, and it cost him big.
Well, that's a possibility of what happened there, but I'm looking at the replay. I'm seeing a little different angle there. I can agree with you back up that can happen, but from what I'm seeing here, either the 9 got really tight or he was trying to block the 5 there. I don't know for certain. I mean, we mentioned that the cars are very tight, but from what I could tell, that ended up causing the 5 to have to really move up the track there, and there's actually a little bit of neck code, maybe some contact there between the 5 and the 9 there, and it ended up just checking up the 5, who ended up getting checked up into the 70, and just an accordion effect there.
And iRacing can be tricky like this, but we are still green. I won't say clean and green. Battle for the race lead back on. Talked about how the 96 and the 9 got away. A huge run from E.J. O'Rourke, courtesy of the 54 of Austin J. Yarbrough. The Jack Daniels Toyota pushed that gmercer.com machine to the front. The 93 dunked to the bottom before the 54 was clear. So now it's O'Rourke in front of the 96, Arolo in front of the 9 of Anthony DeBarro. And topside, you'll find the 54 machine of Yarbrough, trailed by the 15 and the 43 of Doug Roth. And Andy, just like that, we go to talking about pack racing being 2 and 3 wide and having the top 10 drivers within 5/10 of a second of each other, to now still having a relatively large lead, draft back to 13th position within 1 second of each other. Now another spinner out of the tri-oval. The 33 of Dale Wren spins down to the apron. That car will come to a stop. No caution. We stay green yet again. I was just about to say that just because we're spread out doesn't mean we're any more safe. That proved it right there.
Yeah, exactly. You would think you would be safe with a little bit more separation between these cars, and right now you see it a little bit with the first pack, 6 cars. Then about a second back, you see about another 10 or 12 cars there. So what it is that usually it takes a pit stop to separate these guys like this, a green flag pit stop. Instead, we had an accident, a pretty big one, that did not trigger the yellow flag. So for these top 6 guys right now, what they need to do is not battle for position. They need to stay single file so they can keep ahead of those guys that are behind them. And it looks like they gained almost about a second that last lap. So whatever they're doing right now, they can't change it now. Don't worry about leading laps. Just worry about getting closer to the finish.
And Evan, I think the hardest part for me in all of this is we see Mitch Rollo go back for the lead with Anthony DeBarro and squeeze 3 wide with a lap car. The hardest part for me in this whole thing is the fact that there was no caution, and that's one of the peculiar things about this sim. That was a perfect storm of circumstances for the caution not to come out right there.
Yeah, we saw Dale Rance also. That car spun, got into the inside of pit road wall as we go 3 wide for the race lead. The 96 and a 9 going to get pushed up to that outside lane, and through the middle comes Austin Yarbrough. But it doesn't matter what happens to that car if it's down below the double yellow line. For the most part, the sim is not going to trigger the yellow now into the outside wall in turn 2. Mitch Rollo going to tag the fence. DeBarro, who was behind him, going to check up in time so they don't get tangled up. But because of that, the 96 and the 9 going to lose contact, at least for the moment, with the drivers inside of the top 4 who now ride single file, pulling away. We have seen accidents like the most recent one bring out yellows, though. And then you look at a case like tonight where now 2 caution flags averted by not having that yellow automatically be thrown by the sim and by RSR policy. That means we are green still, and that means we're already at lap number 16 of 100 tonight, and it is now a very different complexion to this Daytona 250 than we thought, as your top 4 are going to break them up into 2 sets of 2 dancing partners down the back straight with the 93, the 54, up against the 15, the 43, 3 wide around some lap traffic, but the driver on the attack at the moment is Jeff Ward.
Yeah, how about Jeff Ward, too, as he's going to lose a little momentum. E.J. O'Rourke and Austin Yarbrough on the bottom lane were able to stay locked together a little bit better going into turn number 3, and that gave them some momentum. O'Rourke going to lead his 6th consecutive lap here at Daytona International Speedway, and 4 cars under a blanket. Thomas is quickly going to become 6 once again. Rollo and DeBarro are coming back to play in this. You want to talk about 2 very good race cars. I have to say, with the way they've been able to just pull right back to the front of this field, I'm eyeing that tandem, if they can stay working together for a lot of this race, as being one that really has the potential to dominate the field. They just have to do it right.
Well, and you could say that about anybody else, but they are, definitely working together the best as teammates will, and relatively they have the least damaged cars out of any teammates I could see. Maybe Mitch with the right front there, he's still able to keep a good pace there with that draft from the help in front of him. But it's also, we got a 3 wide situation there for a second, the trial, but it's also a matter of the fact that you saw those 2 cars in the 93 and 54 and the 43, and I believe it was the 15 of Jeff Ward. They were fighting each other for that lead, so they weren't necessarily lined up for a draft and help. And that's the thing about Daytona. This has gone on since the late 70s, the mid to late 70s, when that Dodge Daytona was introduced with that big wing and had such a dominant had such a dominant force on the competition that NASCAR actually put their restrictor plates in those cars to show up the competition. So ever since then, you started to see that progression of reducing the horsepower, trying to make sure that not one car dominated the field, like Bill Elliott back in the 80s and such, that Daytona Talladega. Oh, we got one inside.
And down below the yellow line again, somebody gonna get spit out of line. It's Mitch Rollo, the 96. He's down, he's out in the grass. He'll get a handle on that car before he finds the inside wall. Back up onto the apron, he gets her winded down, and he will stay going. And now problems towards the front of the field. Now down the backstretch, big accident. The 15 car, Jeff Ward, gonna go around. There's the caution flag at lap number 19, and that was an interesting stint, and this one is going to bite Jeff Ward, the number 15 machine. Huge run topside, Jacob, the 54 of Yarbrough. Just either didn't see him or pushed up the hill, but he took him out, and a 15 and a 9 paid the price.
And that is going to make things a little bit ugly here at the front of the field. Caution flag flying at lap number 19. You get a look at the replay here, Evan, and I was still trying to follow Mitch Rollo's progress as he had smacked the inside wall and didn't get a good look at that all starting. But you want to talk about two big bites out of this field in the first 20% of this race. We've now had one big one that didn't bring out a caution and a second big one that draws this first yellow of the evening here.
At a 54, as it seems to always be at a plate track, the driver that makes the slight movement to kick it all off is the one that drives away, and the drivers behind are the ones that have nowhere to go. I know Jeff Ward involved, the 27, the 41, the 21, the 02, the 3, at least 6, 7 big drivers inside of the top 10, inside of the top 15, going to get into this accident. So at lap number 20, we do get our second caution flag on the night. And like that, we go a 14-lap stint in which we probably could have gotten 4 yellows at least, Andy. It was just a weird stint. And again, although they spread out, it kind of looked like everybody was rattled after that first accident, trying to catch back up to everybody, because when there's a big wreck in front of you, like we saw in turn 2 around lap 10 when there was no yellow, everybody else started backing down. So as our leaders head down to the pit lane, those guys were kind of scrambling to catch back up, and it was just a really weird 14-lap stint.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you obviously have to do when you're coming up. You see smoke and cars spinning in front of you. You got to let off. You got to get off the throttle. Make sure that you have control of your car so you can get around the wreck or a spinning car or whatever you have to do to make that evasive move. And then you don't see the caution. It's very frustrating for a driver when you see those leaders just taking off from you and you really can't do anything about it. So, obviously they got fortunate here. We able to get this caution here. This will bring everybody right back up into it, and leaders are heading right down that way by Austin Yarbrough leading the way.
The 54 machine led us down to the pit lane for service. Interestingly enough, he'll not be the first driver off, though. He had a problem getting into his stall. He overshot the box, and with that, handful of drivers going to get up and around him, including E.J. O'Rourke, who is set to take over the race lead at the 1/5 mark. It'll be the gmercer.com Chevrolet out in front when we take our second restart on the night. In the meantime, we'll step away and take a quick break. We'll be back for the restart from Daytona in just a moment. You're watching LSRTV's coverage of the Real Sim Race at Icebreaker Winter Series Daytona 250, presented by Hippie's Paint Shop. We're back live at the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Restart coming up to take lap number 24, just shy of quarter distance in the Daytona 250. Looking to get some order back on the racetrack after a very interesting 14-lap stint. We grid them back up, still with 28 cars on the lead lap, but via a pit road mishap on behalf of at-time race leader Austin J. Yarbrough. Jacob, E.J. O'Rourke going to bring us back to it.
Yeah, not only a pit road mishap, but also Yarbrough getting tabbed with the end of the longest line penalty for being tabbed as the one who brought out that caution flag. So he starts from the tail, and O'Rourke brings us back to green with a whole new host of players now at the front of this field. David Comstock wasn't anywhere near this lead draft during the opening stint. He now finds himself on the outside leading that train. Jonathan Cadell, Joseph LaPlaca, Cisco Scaramuzza all up there. That's your top five, and Cadell trying to give O'Rourke a shove back to the lead. Everybody in lockstep formation down the super stretch.
And they get him up to speed now to 191 miles an hour in turn number 3, bottom of the racetrack, as we expect the small advantage outside, not hanging back much at all, though the 14 David Comstock, big run with the 79. How about Joseph LaPlaca? He's digging up through this one, but David Comstock 34th on the grid to second at lap number 25, and it is even with the inside and the outside lane to turn number 1. Everybody in the lead pack tapped within, I'd say, 1.2 seconds through 23rd spot at a turn number 2. Still a dead heat, small advantage on the bottom to O'Rourke, but every time, Andy, they come off the corner, the outside using 33 degrees of banking to their advantage. That's where the big run comes from. That's why you see right there Comstock get half a car length to the good before they got to go back up that hill, and that's where it hurts them.
Yeah, I was trying to mention that earlier before we had one of those wrecks, but that outside lane typically is going to do that all night long. They'll get the runs on the outside lane. When they hit the corners, it's like they hit a block of, just basically a brick wall. And the cars really start to slow up, especially on that high side. So it's all about timing yourself, getting to that back bumper. Right before you're getting off the corner there, you give them a good push down the straightaway. That's where you get your speed. That's where you get your momentum. And right now, that's what you see Joseph LaPlaca trying to do for David Comstock heading into 3.
I think the term you were looking for right there, Andy, might have been a block of air, because that's really what it feels like in these cars. And, we still see it 2x2. This is the first run we've had all night, Thomas, where nobody's been able to get away from anybody single file. This is the closest quarters racing we've had at the front of the field. Nobody can go anywhere and get clear. O'Rourke's trying to, but that outside lane just keeps coming.
Well, and the thing about it is that outside lane has a lot of help behind it, and that's the thing you need here at Daytona more than anything. If you want a run to get a line to work on the outside, you've got to get those cars stacked up 10 to 15 deep. And luckily enough for those guys, this is pretty much an even rectangle of cars, an even pack, with the exception of the two at the very back being a tail end, but they're also damaged. So and David goes to the lead there, just as we were talking about it. Something he's very good at here, these plate tracks, and that's why he's lining up. But the thing you see now is that pack is now split apart. It's single file back up at front, minus the car on the outside and the 79 there, while the rest are 2x2. So those cars, that pack behind them is going to have to get lined up really quick if they want to keep a tail on them.
Yeah, that outside lane, Evan, really fragmented quickly. No more Comstock got to the bottom of the racetrack. He was basically pulling that whole outside lane along, and once they lost the momentum as he transitioned to the bottom of the racetrack, it really had nowhere to go, and now you see the result. Couple of cars single file at the front with very few stuck on the outside lane together, though they're trying to get it reformed in 3 and 4.
And the outside, they'll surge like that. They'll get up to the front. They'll lose a little bit of momentum, especially if somebody from the outside ducks down to take the inside. Then that outside going to fall back a little bit, regain composure, get back going. But with the amount of cars that you see on the outside, again, this is the tightest they've been, as you guys mentioned, all night long to this point at lap number 29. You're looking at 7 drivers working the high side and just about 10 versus them on the bottom. So the inside has that small advantage, but the outside, they can also use that side draft, pinch down those guys on the bottom. That's where I'd say a good 50% of the accidents, Jacob, come from later on in these races. Not that you're not going to see any of that that in the middle portions, but as this race goes on, that outside lane going to start to go lower and lower, down to more towards where you see that seam right above the guys running on the bottom. That's going to get closer as the night goes on. Right now, as close as it looks, most of these guys are just riding. You see the two drop to the bottom of the racetrack. Rhett McBride thinking that he can't do anything on the outside, so he'll go down. If you're a guy like an 85, a Cisco Scaramuza, or even an 83, a Benefield, who's on the outside but not the first or second car, there's not a whole lot you can do at this juncture, but just ride in line, follow the guys around you.
Yeah, it is really tough, and I got very nervous a minute. McBride made that slice move to the bottom of the racetrack. He about caused another big crash here, because that was very easily could have taken off the front nose of Cisco Scaramuza's machine any closer, and you're talking about a 3, 4, 5, 6, and more car pileup as we wad them together. And now we work off turn number 4. Comstock's really got pressure from the lead from the outside lane. The number 79 of Joseph LaPlaca is up there trying to do battle and bring Mitch Rollo with him. We were just talking about Rollo, Evan, a few laps ago, being in the inside wall in turn 1, and now after a little bit of repairs to that front nose, he's right up there in the thick of this again.
He did a good job. He found himself facing that inside, or really where the pit road wall is, right coming out of the tri-oval in the exact same spot, where we saw problems with a driver earlier on, but he was able to keep that out of the fence and get that track position back under the caution flag. So he's back up. The 3, the 54, 2 other drivers to take a look at. Justin Michael, haven't said his name a whole lot tonight. Number 3 Chevrolet started 28th. He's riding 7th. He's got help from Austin Yarbrough into number 54 again. 54 was in the lead of this race, threw away 11 or so spots when he overshot his pit stall and still went with 4 tires. He's trying to find his way back up to the field, Andy. However, that a lot easier said than done. He's struggling to try to get anywhere as he's stuck on the outside of the racetrack now behind that 3. So he's doing a good job of working his way back up. He's a little bit past halfway back up there since that most recent caution flag. He and Adam Benefield so far have been 2 of the names we've seen be dished out an EOL penalty for being deemed the cause of the caution so far tonight. He's done a good job, but it gets a lot harder to pass guys when you're inside the top 10. Hello! He'll drop to the bottom, get around that 6 machine. That's these guys putting another lap down to Tom Dryerling, who's now 13 back, but your leader is still 2 wide through the top 10.
Yeah, you talk about not being able to pass once you're 2 wide. The only way to pass is to go 3 wide, and that makes it even that more dangerous around this tight, narrow super speedway. And with that said, you ain't going to do it by yourself either. You need a lot of help. You got to have some sort of communication with some other drivers, so you can let them know, hey, I'm going up, way up high, and so far we've only seen it a couple times. Now, as you see, the 21 now dipping his nose out. That's Matt Lacrosse there on the outside, 3 wide, around that 12, 13 spot right now. Lacrosse, no help though. You can see he doesn't make any ground off 4.
How about David Comstock, Kevin? He got clear for a moment, and E.J. O'Rourke said...
Oh, big accordion effect. There goes the 3. Justin Michael down into the 85. A Cisco Scaramuza. Big contact for the 8 machine of Chad Cole. It's a wreck down the tri-oval.
And we were watching that, Evan, right here, just about in the middle of the tri-oval. I was just about ready to say we had a battle for the lead, and then it all broke loose behind them. Justin Michael was running around 7th or 8th position coming into that, and when you get sideways right in the middle of this mess, we talk about how tight the tri-oval always is. There's really nothing you can do at that point.
And that's exactly what we saw earlier on in this race, too. Also, Andy, it's an accordion effect. That time it was Adam Benefield who just happened to be the person to tag somebody that went around. And ironically enough, in this case, Benefield's the one that gets hit in the back end, except it's Justin Michael, who just happens to be the 6th driver in line or so, where he can't react in time. No fault of his own, really, but I think that he's probably going to be deemed with a caution flag here. If not that 83 machine, he goes down out of line. The 85 spins down as well, and Scaramuza tries to hang on before he gets clipped by Chad Cole. Chad Cole back up the track, and a huge lick for the number 91 machine, Greg Omo, who as well got some pretty heavy damage in that one.
Yeah, a couple guys right there. We talked about the 85 of Cisco Scaramuza, just can't catch a break right now. He went spinning down. The championship implications for that 8 of Chad Cole has been having a pretty much flawless season, and then now finds himself in trouble here at Daytona.
And this opens up pit road for another opportunity for your leaders to come down and get serviced if they elect to. But they're all just down pit road. I know we've been talking about, tire degradation and trying to get fresh tires. Obviously going to help the handling. So far, Thomas, although we haven't gotten that long of a green flag stretch tonight, we have seen a relatively decently length runs a couple of times, but in the longest runs we've seen so far, it hasn't been long enough to the point where we have really seen these tires start to go away, but yet everybody continues to want to come down and get tires. Is that still the right call?
I think the right call, honestly, Evans, to come down pit road when you can have the chance. Obviously, these guys don't run a full fuel cell. You got to take advantage, I think, of these free opportunities to pit.
You got to spin on pit road, 2 cars.
If you don't come down pit road when you get the free opportunity like this under caution, then you got to take the chance that when you have to make a green flag stop, that you're stopping by yourself. Because if you stop by yourself, you're in trouble. As we see a couple guys, the 83. It looks like the 82.
And Comstock had to go in the grass to get around because pit road was blocked. It was Benefiel turned around, and it wasn't just from the entry. Another checkup, Jacob. I don't know. I know I said we're not under the lights tonight, but it almost sounded like that. The 83 of Adam Benefiel, an innocent victim. This one's 100% Rhett McBride's fault. He just stays out way too long, sees his pit stall, is almost past it, hits the brakes, and the 83 right behind him, and as well as the 54, nothing they could do about it, and they both get damage from it.
Yeah, take a look at the replay right here, and that was just a case for most of these guys, Evan, of wrong place, wrong time, and you'll have that. Unfortunately, we're looking up and seeing blue virtual skies, but you would think we're under the lights. It's almost like we've got a full moon going tonight with as many problems and as much carnage as we've seen already in just the first third of this race. 35 down, still 65 to go.
Yeah, normally we see this attrition, maybe if that's the right word, come in the second half of the race. Normally, I'd say the opening half of these races get by, for the most part, cleaner. And once we stop counting up, we start counting down. That's when these guys start to get excited about this. But Thomas, I haven't really seen a lot of people driving over their heads. It just seems like at least 3 of the accidents we've seen so far tonight have just been caused from checkups that happen all the time in the middle of the pack, and unfortunately tonight they just seem to be catching guys.
Well, and we talked about it earlier, that's just the nature of this track. You got a pack of cars in front of you. One guy checks up, because he might be trying to get air to that engine there, because this isn't like the Cup car where you don't have to suck up to the bumper as much. These cars are right there, nose to tail, 10, 20 deep, back in a pack, and some guys just need to try and get air to that engine to keep it cool because they don't want it to blow up. But and it's just one of those things. You gotta just kind of account for it. I don't want to say it's a lack of talent, because there is talent in this field, but I think it's a little bit more of mental awareness. Some of these drivers maybe they're not necessarily thinking, there might be a checkup, and hopefully they can start realizing that here, because it's kind of been like that for the last couple of weeks. It seems like, just not enough on track awareness, and hopefully that picks up soon for the full throttle season in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, after tonight, just 3 weeks left on Monday nights in the B cars, and then we go racing for the 2016 Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series. We're looking forward to that, and this championship starting to come to a close, so the championship picture becomes more clear every single week. But again, with that being said, we have seen some very strange races. There's still plenty of time, though, to get tonight's race back on track. By the numbers, it hasn't been all that bad. We've had 8 lead changes. Jonathan Cadell becomes the 8th leader at this point in the race. He'll bring us back to the green flag. In front of it's Rolo, EJ O'Rourke, Jason Swan, David Comstock inside of the top 5. It looks like Swan going to be headed pit side, get service, get back to the back of the pack. So the fact that we still see, Andy, people coming down pit road at the white flag and going to the back after getting some service tells me that they don't think things are calming down anytime soon. They still want to be back into safety.
Yeah, that and a couple of those guys are probably topping off on fuel, trying to figure out the lap strategy as far as how far they can make it. If they can make it on one more stop, if those guys have to make it on 2 more from here, it'll give them slight advantage. So I think a lot of them were topping off and maybe heading to the back to maybe hopefully miss some of this action that we've had here.
Lights off, we get set to go back green, restart just shy of marking this one at 60 laps to go. It'll be 62 left on the board, so almost at the halfway point in a Daytona 250. We're happy to have you with us live on iRacing Live and LSRTV for the Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, presented by Hippie's Paint Shop. Evan Pasoko, Jacob Seelman, Andy Kessler, Thomas George, topside with you. A little bit of a slow patch at the moment, looking to get things back on track at the World Center of Racing. And Cadell in front has been one of the drivers that has been able to tame that aggressiveness. It's gotten him from 18th to 1st, and he'll be in control when we take the green.
Yeah, it's good to see him be able to make up some spots like he has and be up front. That last stint, he was sitting about 2nd or 3rd in that front pack on the bottom side. So for Cadell, just been patient, waiting his time, picking them off one at a time.
Pace car going to get down, get out of the way. We head towards the American Ethanol restart zone. 38 to the books, 39 in the works. Green flag back in the air for Jonathan Cadell. Good push from behind by the 93 of VJ O'Rourke, and equally as so topside for the 96 machine of Mitch Rollo, who got the push for the 14 of David Comstock. It's a 4-horse race down to turn number 1. Inside going to get the advantage again as they get these guys up to full song. But that outside of the racetrack right now, at least, not fading away and evaporating like we saw on the first couple of restarts. Early in this race, everybody wanted to get to the bottom as soon as they could. And now, Thomas, everybody seems to want to give that outside lane a try. Most of the drivers stay up there, with the exception of 92 machine, who jumps down. So Brian Terry get to go to the bottom of the racetrack. Other than that, though, top 5 drivers that started outside still there, and they're holding their ground with the top 2 on the bottom.
Well, I also think it's a matter of they're trying to, test the waters and see what they can do here in the event that we get a restart like this with, say, 10 laps to go if a caution comes out, and they want to see, who they work well with, who they can trust more than the other, You look at, Jonathan Cadell's the leader there. The closest teammates he has right now is the 5 of Dan Murray, who's back in 8th, and the 70 of Scott Eckridge, who's back in 14th. So he's kind of alone by himself right now, where that 93 and 14, those two work together. They're obviously, in the same team channel, so to speak, and teammates. But you can see where they're positioned at. They're just kind of side by side. They can't really go anywhere. So it's just a matter of mix matching and seeing who you can work with and who you can trust as far as the closing laps. Now, obviously, if we get down to 5 laps, 4 laps, 3 laps to go, the trust isn't going to be there, but you got to work with who you can work with and then figure out what you're going to do at that point. So for now, they're just kind of feeling it out, see who they want to go with possibly towards the end of the race, Then they also, I'm sure, want to see what they have for these leaders up front.
And the outside is still there, but it's more of just a thorn in the side of the guys at the bottom. They've got to make a big charge. Problems behind.
Hard into the wall goes the 51 of Nick Silver, and I think, Thomas, we were both looking at it. He had a little bit of help. It looked like got hooked in that right side and right head on into the middle of the super stretch wall.
That 54 of Austin Yarborough, we talk about it. He's got a lot of talent, but he's got the ability to be fast, but it just seems week in and week out he's putting himself in these positions to cause trouble. And I'm looking at the replay. We've got the replay coming up here, and it just, if you look from overhead, the 51 wasn't moving up. He was saying maintain his line, wasn't moving up into him. That 54, I guess, just tried to get a side draft off of him and just got a little bit too much and turned him right into the wall. So that's going to be the 54 out of this one. It was the second cause caution. So it's a tough break for that 51 for sure, but the 54 just, just another caution for him, I guess.
And a 51 obviously not happy about that one. And it was tough to tell exactly what was going on there, Jacob. A lot of the time we'll see something like that at a turn two. Somebody will push high, and what they do is they try to get back down behind that person. They're not necessarily clear, and they clip them. But this one, again, looks more like Yarbrough was trying to get a side draft. It didn't really look like he was looking to get back down. There was a little bit of netco, but it was still a little bit of an aggressive move at a 2, going to make that run to the high side of the racetrack, because the outside, as I mentioned, they were up even with your leaders, and there were much less cars rather on the outside than the bottom. So if he was able to get to the top side of these guys when they caught that pack, it would have been good. And he had help from behind in the 2 of McBride. It just didn't work out for him, and he turned that 51 into the fence. He goes down to the bottom, and then a big lick coming through that one. It looked like the 41 machine of Corbin Hemstreet. He gets junked in this, as well as the 70 machine of Scott Eckrich.
Yeah, and I'm really shocked by what I'm watching here at the front of the field. Thought most of the leaders were going to be down pit road. Instead, Mitch Rollo fakes back onto the racetrack, brings a chunk of the leaders with him, and Jonathan Cadell, one of the few lead cars to come down the pit lane for service in that 11 GTR Simulators Toyota. Rollo assumes the lead here with 42 of 100 laps complete, and under what's now our 4th caution flag of the night here in the Daytona 250. We'll step aside for just a moment and continue with the action right after this. From the World Center of Racing, you're watching coverage of the RSR Icebreaker Winter Series presented by Hippie's Paint Shop right here on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
While lions are notorious for their voracious appetites, they spend a great deal of time feeding other creatures. In fact, lions will take great care to ensure there's plenty to go around. As you can see, they keep giving with utter ferocity. Bravo, lions, and bon appetit. Do good, be a lion.
Welcome back to the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway, for coverage of rounds 7 to 10 for the RSR Icebreaker Winter Series. And your current race leader, Mitch Rollo, out front for Boomtown Sim, as we welcome you into the Inside Sim Racing Broadcast Tower. Jacob Seelman, Evan Pasoko, Andy Kessler, Thomas George here along for the ride as we get set to come back to the American Ethanol Green Flag with what will be 45 laps complete, closing in on the halfway point of tonight's Daytona 250. We've had a myriad of big wrecks, but right now, as we get set to go green, Rollo, your leader, E.J. O'Rourke on the outside, going to restart in the runner-up position. David Comstock, Joseph LaPlaca, Doug Roth, the rest of your top 5 as we get set to go back to green flag. The 31 degrees of banking in turns 3 and 4, marking that we are set to do that. Again, already 4 cautions, and I think on my tally I've got about 4 big wrecks that we've had here in the first half of this event. But the pace car is going to drop to the safety of pit road this time by and leave the field in the hands of Mitch Rollo and E.J. O'Rourke as we get set to go back under the green flag. Pace car is gone. Rollo brings him to the acceleration zone, and we are back underway here at Daytona as they get him wound up, Evan. Of course, we made light of it on the starting grid tonight, but definitely since Rollo sits out front, want to call attention to the scheme that is leading this race, the lymphoma awareness schemes that many of the RSR faithful are running tonight. Of course, anybody that hasn't heard the story can hear it now on LSRTV, those schemes being run in honor of executive producer Laura Lawson and her current valiant fight. And, of course, very good to see a couple of those schemes now with both Mitch Rollo and the 67 of William Hartman up on the bottom fighting for the lead of this race.
Yeah, and there was a lot of them out there tonight as well on the track, so want to thank all the drivers for being a part of that. Want to thank everybody for all of their support. It'd be cool to see one of those cars did a victory lane, although a lot of them haven't quite had the best luck tonight. There's 3 of them, though, in line on the bottom, so just want to let all the drivers know we appreciate that, and we're keeping an eye on them as well. So we look forward to this race, though. It has been a rough one to start off at Daytona. We're at lap 47. We're at halfway. I'm ready to go. The 14 to David Comstock is in front. Can we build a charge? Outside, though, non-existent. We've spent the last 2 restarts, Andy, talking about how the outside is back, and well, now it's gone. Everybody but 3 going to the bottom.
Yeah, it's about that time. I think everybody's kind of sick of having all the cautions, and it's not fun when the pace car is leading all the laps here in a race, and especially at Daytona with these long races. And what a move right there by William Hartman to the outside, right in front of Mitch Rollo. And now you're going to see these 2 cars hook up along with E.J. O'Rourke on that outside lane, trying to take that lead away from David Comstock. They're going to have some tough work to get it done. William Hartman, though, doing a great job into turn number 1.
Turn number 1, now through 2 they go. The 67 close call behind them.
Cadell looks like he got a little bit of help right there. But
that's the 11 machine.
Got turned by 21.
Right around.
The caution back out. This one at lap 48. And again, guys, just an accordion effect. The checkup sent the 83 of Benefiel out of line, and Cadell just got run over from behind from an unsuspecting Matt Lacrosse. That's about the 5th time tonight, Thomas. The same thing.
Yeah, and it's just, a product of, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's just a product of play racing at Daytona. You end up, the accordion effect itself it causes it. You can't help, it just doesn't help. And we said at the top of the broadcast, these cars, these drivers have been experiencing a very tight car for everybody, especially with the way that the track is. It's daytime. There's very little grip, even as on a track as smooth as this one is now, and just miscommunication basically. Racers not racing with their heads, and I don't know if it's going to get any easier. We still got another 50 laps here, but like I said, hopefully they can get it right.
It just has been a slow progressing race at this point. An early caution flag, but it has been interesting. If we look at some of the names in this conversation, your current race leader is David Comstock. He started in 34th position. He'll lead us at the halfway point. We'll give it another lap, and then under this yellow, we'll give you a rundown through the entire field, but it has taken 22nd through 37th off of the lead lap. So just 21 drivers remain topside. And again, Jacob, leaders back down to the pit lane. Although, as we talked about a little bit under the break there with guys pitting, even if the stint is just 5 to 6 to 7 laps, which the part that I found interesting is we really haven't had a run long enough to see how much these tires are going to fall off. These guys seem to be sticking to the strategy that they want at least right side tires every chance they can. David Comstock implies that very strategy there. The 14 takes 2 right sides. He'll be the first one to back off, and he'll be trailed by the number 93 of E.J. O'Rourke. So the 2-tire call wins that race off at pit lane, but it seems like no matter what the yellow is, and no matter how long it takes, with the exception of when we saw Rolo stay out to take over the race lead, most drivers on the consensus that they want to use up all the tires that they can tonight. Maybe because if we go green at any moment and a long green flag stretch could break out to 25-30 laps, they don't want to be at that small disadvantage because they feel like that could really hinder them.
Yeah, exactly right. And, I got to give a call to that strategy that Mitch used, staying out he did to assume the race lead, because it's really kept him up at the front of the field for most of the last 30 laps or so. And we'll reset the field here when we complete the halfway lap and then give you a look at the full field rundown. But I got to give props to this Monster Energy machine, because David has been remarkably good, Evan, already through the first half of this race. He kept himself at the back of the field early, and really, he took the provisional, as he said to me before the race, to make sure we were out of the way, out of trouble when everything started getting crazy early on. And that strategy paid off to perfection, because he was able to avoid the early big wrecks and then put himself in position as the field has dwindled. So you've got him up here, you've got E.J. O'Rourke up here, you've got the 3 of Justin Michael, who was involved in one of our earlier caution flags, up here now, has really made a nice resurgence back through the field. Look through that full field rundown right now as we work lap number 51 and move into the second half of this race. Comstock, your leader. Jason Swan, who stayed out to lead a lap last time by, has come to the pit lane. That's going to elevate E.J. O'Rourke to second. Justin Michael going to be third. Mitch Rolo fourth. Brian Terry going to move up inside the top 5 with La Placa sixth. Doug Roth back in the mix. He's going to cycle in seventh. Adam Benefiel 8th. William Hartman going to be 9th once we cycle Swanee through to the tail end of the lead lap, and that's going to put Douglas Wyatt in the 22 up to 10th.
And then just behind, in 11th spot, you'll find the 22 Douglas Wyatt, Dan Murray 12th, 13th Matt Lacrosse, William Hale from the number 6 spot through 14th to the 15th is Mike Rominger, 16th Rhett McBride, Dale Renson 17th, 18th is Paul Fugate, Cisco Scaramuza through an accident in 19th position, and 20th Andy Scott Eckridge.
Yeah, 21st right now on the board. Last car on the lead lap, that's Jonathan Cadell. 22nd spot goes to Mike Kelly. 23rd is the 55 of Tyler Herr. Corbin Himstreet says 24th. 25th goes to Nick Silver. 26th is Austin Yarborough. 27th is Greg Omo. The 28th spot goes to Tom Dryerling. 29th is Chad Cole. And 30th is Jeff Ward.
Behind Ward, 31st, and all the rest of these cars are out of the race. Anthony DeBarro, J. Randall Watkins, 32nd. Nick Orr, 33rd. Dwayne Vincent, 34th. 35th, Daniel Eberhardt. 36th, Stephanie Lessentine. 37th, William Amaker, the final car in tonight's field. And that's a look at your Ford Performance full field rundown here now, with 1 lap past the halfway distance complete. And this full field rundown brought to you by Ford, an official partner of iRacing, and Hippie's Paint Shop, proud sponsor of Real Sim Racing. Lights go out on the Ford GT Mustang pace car, Evan, and we move Comstock and O'Rourke back to that front row again. And I'm telling you, these two look to be the two best cars at the front of the field here as we move into the second half. There's a couple that I'm not discounting, but I got to believe if those two start working together, they've done that a lot, they're teammates, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them really be able to put a hurting on this field during the second half here.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about the fact that Comstock started 34th and O'Rourke started 7th. So in order to get to where they run right now, they were running in very different places when this race started. However, through a couple of early yellows and through the most recent ones, they've been the constants at the front of the field. I'm curious to see the 3 of Justin Michael, even a 92 of Brian Terry, who are going to line up on the inside of row 2 and 3, P3 and P5. See what they have working for them on the restart. The number of lead lap cars still at 21 at the halfway point. Restart with 48 laps to go. Gonna bridge us into the second half of the Daytona 250 for round 7 on the Real Racing Icebreaker Winter Series, presented by Hippie's Paint Shop. The American Childhood Cancer Organization Mustang GT pace car gonna make the sharp left-hand turn. Get down, get out of the way. David Comstock to the restart box in control.
Green flag back in the air as we work across the stripe. 52 laps complete, 48 to go, and just as if they planned it, the two teammates run 1-2, drop to the bottom of the racetrack for a moment. O'Rourke had designs of maybe going to the outside lane. Now he falls right in behind his teammate and make that the first tandem ahead of this field. Behind them, though, it gets interesting as Joseph LaPlaca trying to push Mitch Rollo towards the front of the field. And on the bottom lane, you've got the 3 of Justin Michael pushed by the 92 of Brian Terry. And look at O'Rourke slice up to the outside. Now we got a battle for the lead, and Comstock's going to be on the losing end of this one. EJ got a big push from Mitch Rollo, and I think it's going to pay off turn 4.
And that outside with that big run, they don't dive to the bottom yet. Now into the tri-oval they go. 1 car's clear, 2 cars clear, and 3. Look at the 79 of LaPlaca ducked to the bottom of the racetrack. So just like that, it goes O'Rourke, Rollo, and Joseph LaPlaca. 1, 2, 3, leaving David Comstock back at 4th, and now the outside in the hands of Adam Benefield slides back 5 car lengths, all the inside down the Daytona Superstretch. Andy, first time tonight we've seen the outside get a dominating opening lap of a restart such like that one. So much so, they pulled away from the rest of the pack. The 14 to the outside of the racetrack. Rest of the guys going to catch up to him here in a moment, but they got so much speed, they're still riding it.
Yeah, that was just flat out great driving by Mitch Rollo. He got right on that back bumper of EJ O'Rourke, stuck to it all the way through the corner. That's what gave him the advantage coming off the corner. And the 79 of Joseph LaPlaca was just there for the ride at the right time, the right place for him. Was able to suck up with that draft and get around David Comstock. And so just like that, from 1st to 4th goes to 14. And it looks like single file right now is O's. As Comstock now looks to the outside. He's all by himself. He's trying to get a little side draft. He's got the 67 of Hartman trying to get up there. It's going to be a little too late, at least for now, for the race lead for Comstock.
And LaPlaca, a little bit of a bad entry to turn 3. He's got to check up, but he'll stall out the bottom just a little bit. The 14 going to have a big run now on the outside of the racetrack. But again, the pack at the front of the field now, not as large as it was earlier in the night with less cars. It takes it outside a little bit longer to kind of regain its standing. I talked about how left in charge of the outside lane was Adam Benefield. Well, now he's the 9th car in line on the bottom nearly, and P12 at the start-finish line, so he's fallen way back.
Yeah, he really has, Evan, and now you see a new look up towards the front of the field, where before it was the 14 and the 93 working together. Now they're fighting for the race lead, and David Comstock's got a whale of a push from William Hartman on the outside lane. Door-to-door into turn number 3 goes O'Rourke versus Comstock. The two teammates going at it, and Mitch Rollo going to shove EJ ahead. Back off turn number 4. The 93 going to lead yet another lap tonight. This stint going to be 4 consecutive so far, but it's 2 by 2 back to turn number 1, and everybody getting into this scramble now. 7 cars under a blanket.
And it's the top 9 or so that are pulling away, and then there's a second part of that lead draft that goes back to, I'd say, 15th, 16th position before they start to dwindle away. They're just a couple of car lengths off, but it's the top 7 now that pull away down the Daytona super stretch, that it's Comstock finally trying to get back in front. Not going to do it that time. All of a sudden, though, look at the 22. How about Douglas Wyatt from 29th on the grid? He is inside the top 5 just like that, and he's working with Doug Roth. A good run for those 2 cars on the outside of the racetrack, 4th in line up top.
Lead change number 16 tonight at lap 57. Comstock leads it by a bumper, but Douglas Wyatt, where did he come from in that 22 machine? I don't think we've said his name but once tonight, Evan, during that full field rundown. Now he's right up here battling for the race lead in this 7-car draft, and got a ton of help from that petty blue and red number 43 of Doug Roth. They're going at it and trying to make a squeeze. LaPlaca's hanging on to this lead draft somehow. Usually an odd number of cars doesn't work, but he's really holding onto the back deck lid of Mitch Rollo and making it basically a 3-car runaway on the bottom of the racetrack.
And the inside, again, they have that advantage because they can build up the momentum. The counter argument for the outside is they can pinch the bottom. When you're pinching the guys down low, they can't do anything to break that side draft, and you're looking at some of the best guys on the outside that know how to do just that. Comstock leads. You're starting to see, though, the outside lane, they don't hold it as tight at a turn 2, A, because they're starting to get a little bit loose off the corner and or tight, and B, because they know the guys on the bottom aren't handling as good. There's a lot more movement, which is interesting, Thomas, because we talked about how these cars handle a little bit better based on in comparison rather to the Gen 6 cars, depending on how you like to drive them. But we're starting to see these guys, they're moving around a lot, despite the fact that we're not really densely packed in there at the front. Not a lot of guys smooth at the moment. Everybody's peeking their nose out, looking side to side, trying to give themselves some space, and ironically enough, when you try to do that, you almost find yourself in a cramped position.
Well, and that's the main difference between this and the Gen 6 cars that I talked about earlier, is that with these cars, you have to be on the bumper of the guy in front of you in order to get any kind of run going, whereas in the Gen 6, it's more about where you maneuver yourself. And obviously, you're going to move around in that car, too, to try and find some kind of extra draft to get off the corners and make a move. But here, you got to have the help. You got to, or you got to have the help more a lot than in the Cup car, per se. But the thing about it is with these cars, though, like I said, if you're not in the bumper, you're going to lose a lot of time, and even a slight bit of damage can cause some problems with it, For the most part, these guys are up front, other than the 96 with some damage on that right front there, and it doesn't seem to be affecting him that much. All these drivers, as a 79 dips right down to the bottom, looks like he's going to fall to the back as he's apparently having some connection issues. But these cars up in front here have been relatively clean, and they haven't had any damage or been involved in any wrecks. So they're playing the strategy the way it needs to be played right now, but we still have a long way to go before this race is over.
Evan, I think I breathed a sigh of relief just then when the 79 of Joseph LaPlaca dropped out of line and headed for the apron, because he was starting to have some major connection issues, and the way he was blinking, you just had the feeling that was about to get disastrous, and he pops up in just the wrong spot. We may be talking about our 5th big one of the night. Very, very heads-up move by that driver to fall out of the way and prevent another potential catastrophe from happening here right in the middle of the lead pack.
And we say 3 wide earlier on. They're holding it back to 2 wide at the moment, which is good. And actually, I talked about the stragglers, Jacob. It was about 7 drivers at the front and 5 or 6 hanging back. Well, now it's very distinct. 11 drivers are in this lead pack. That's going all the way up from E.J. O'Rourke, who may be now David Comstock. Start-finish line. It'll be O'Rourke. He'll hang on by just 5 1/1000ths of a second. It goes up to those guys on the front row. Back to Matt Lacrosse in the number 21 machine at 11th. All of a sudden, Justin Michael, a name that we were talking about, Brian Terry, a name I know I mentioned inside the top 5 at least 2 restarts ago. They're now 3.4 seconds seconds back, and they just don't have enough cars in those 4 or 3 car packs back there to contend with what the speed that 11 cars is producing. So those guys at a spot where, based on how this next set of pit stops will go, if it'll be under green, if it'll be under yellow, which is what they're hoping for, that'll be their only shot. You're not going to make up 5+ seconds if you're talking about guys 14th on back like Raman, Jarens, and Scarmuza. You're not making up that much time with 3 cars when these guys have 8. Even though the leaders are side by side and they're going at it, 3 cars not faster than 11.
Not at all, and we keep waiting for the 18th lead change of this race to break out. David Comstock is trying to make it happen, Evan, but I mean, E.J. O'Rourke is holding the lead at the stripe by the slimmest of margins. Last time by 1/1000th of a second, he was out in front. I'm fairly convinced that this time by, Comstock is going to be able to get the advantage. He's had a very good push every time down the super stretch and the main straightaway into the tri-oval from William Hartman, though. Just as I say that, the two of them get a little bit disconnected, Andy, and now they've got to get locked back together. EJ gonna hold it here again at the line, but I'm telling you, these front 4 can't get away from each other. O'Rourke, Comstock, Rollo, and Hartman are leading this train. The problem is it's bottlenecked everybody behind them where nobody can go anywhere.
Yeah, but this makes this a good time for these guys to ride. They got 35 laps to go on the way this time by here, so I think Comstock, both him and E.J. O'Rourke, are just in the prime positions right now. It's this big run on the outside. William Hartman really got the mustard going right there with David Comstock. They pulled out to a lead, even a car length over E.J. O'Rourke, so a huge run down the back straightaway. That's exactly what they needed to get themselves up to the top spot.
And now single filing out at the front, we see at 35 laps to go, Comstock going to be the first driver to break out in this. It's 5 drivers on the bottom, and now Adam Benefield. We talked about guys moving up through the field, Jacob. 83 started mid-pack, got to the front, I guess he was deemed the cause of a caution, sent to the back, got to the front, dropped back outside the top 15, and he's back to the front. He leads the outside charge. Look out, we'll go 3 wide. The 67 of William Hartman gets kicked out of line. He'll end up in the middle. The 83, the 5 go top side. That run going to stall out, though, and now it's next guy to get back down to keep their spot, and the 83 will relinquish that 3rd lane charge, and somehow William Hartman now leads the outside lane. He's side by side for P2 after what looked like he was going to send it back through the Earnhardt-Zucker hole. He's now going to spot the challenge for the race lead if that Benefield can give him the push he needs.
That Benefield charge had to stall out with Dan Murray right there. Otherwise, there was going to be a crash entering turn 3 when everybody came together, Evan. That was very heads-up driving by the 2 veterans to make sure that we didn't have any more problems than we already had right there. 3 wide going into the 31-degree bank in here doesn't really work. It barely works on the super stretch if you're lucky. But now, like you said, William Hartman, who a minute ago was in the Joker position, ends up almost with a gift here because he gets the shove and all that momentum from the run that Benefield and Murray had and can challenge for the lead right here. He's going to get it at lap 67. 19 lead changes now for the night.
And although that's a relatively tame number, I'd say, for Daytona, it is getting more exciting as this race starts to get towards its end. We're almost at 30 laps to go, and although there's not as many drivers now up in the front, it allows them to get a little bit more movement, Andy. We were talking about this on Friday night with the IROC race. Less drivers in comparison to a field of 35-40 gives a little bit more control to the drivers. You can still navigate through the field with a lot of guys out there. We've seen Benefield, we've seen Comstock, we've seen Hartman do it even, who's on the outside from 25th position. But when we're like this, you can go 3 wide if you have the support and not be as squished together. The guys 4th in line in each row have movement. They can jump high, jump low, as opposed to being trapped.
Yeah, basically the pressure's off for these guys in the tail of this pack right here. We see that if guys start to go 3 wide, they can actually back out a little bit, have a little more room, and not have that fear of getting run over. And I think just more... Whoa, and it looks like Comstock had some trouble off turn number 2 there. That's going to open up the middle lane now, 3 wide for everybody as they go down the back straightaway. Look at E.J. O'Rourke on that bottom side. He's going to get right there now.
And look at Mitch Rollo, Andy. Where did he come from?
Exactly. I mean, but this is what this does, is it gives these guys the confidence of more room out there, like Evan was talking about. There's only this little group to worry about. They don't have to worry about getting run over. They don't have to worry about that guy, 10 spots back that's coming with a huge run on the outside. I mean, they have more control over their own destiny with this smaller amount of cars there. So it makes it for a lot more fun races.
It really does. And now with 69 laps complete, Evan, you said that 19 lead changes was tame a minute ago. We're up to 21, and we've had a different
That's more
leader
like
on each one of the last 3 laps. We've had a different leader, and I think we may make it 4 straight. Look at the run by the 96 of Mitch Rollo on the outside lane with help from the 43 of Doug Roth. 67 of Hartman is way out there by himself. He's going to have to fall back to the rest of this
That's
field.
going to hurt him.
May hold the lead at the stripe, but I'm telling you, no, Mitch Rollo to the outside. Rollo to the lead from 3rd this time by, and we go 30 to go.
You would have thought that gap for the 67 was good, but by the time the 93 got to him, he didn't have any momentum. So with that being said, outside lane with a big push, and now in an interesting spot, it's Doug Roth leading the outside charge. Push from Adam Benefiel. Going to be 29 to go this time by, almost at 3/4 distance at Daytona. Behind him, the 14 of David Comstock jumps up, gets out of line, and now it's 4 drivers on the top versus really just 2 on the bottom because O'Rourke not all over the back of that 67, and it seems like only having 2 drivers on the inside, Thomas, is hurting the speed for those guys on the inside lane. It's the freight train, and the freight train's on the outside.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's the name of the game here at Daytona and Talladega is whoever has the longer line tends to have the better advantage. Now, obviously, those 2 up front on the bottom, they're holding their own. They have the preferred line. They have the shorter way around the track. The problem is when you got drivers lined up like the 43, the 83, and the 5R, they can use that run off the corner and get down the straightaway, and oh God, we're gonna have a wreck. Here it comes. Oh God.
Big problems in turn number 4. It's going to be Doug Roth out in front. The caution flag will fly, and the yellow is out, and this one in and around the 22 of Douglas Wyatt. He'll be one of the drivers involved. It was in that lead draft. 22 was behind the initial contact, but it eventually triggers the yellow. What happens in the front, though, is an interesting case of I talked about the guys on the bottom not having enough guys to really challenge the leaders for speed. 2 drivers versus 4 is not a fair fight, and it looked like, Jacob, the 96 to 67 into the corner hard, and I'm not sure if the 43 thought he was clear. It almost looks like more so that Doug Roth just got loose into the corner. He came down, and then the 67 was so close to the 96 trying to push him that by the time Rollo recovered, they were just too close to get off each other, and everybody inside the top 5, with the exception of your leader who did catch the fence, gets some piece of contact in that exchange.
Yeah, and that's really, I've got to wait and get a good look at the right side of Mitch Rollo's machine. That's going to be the key to how much damage he has in this whole exchange. But Doug Roth, I think, is the real benefactor of this, and it's hard to believe that we actually went 20 green flag laps there, 50 miles under green flag conditions without a caution, and Doug Roth going to bring him in now with what's going to be 27 laps to go. He leads the way as now the, I think, 11th different leader that we have had tonight. So Roth bringing him to the pit lane, and it's going to be interesting, Andy. I think the key here is how much damage does Rollo have to repair on that 96 machine. I feel like he was shaping up to be one of the favorites.
Yeah, the only damage I think that really he needs to worry about, because he's been running with a little bit of damage all race long and still had a strong car. I think the only damage he has to worry about is the toe. He knocked the toe out. That's going to really cost him a little bit, because it's going to really throw off the steering, which in turn can make the corners tighter, which in turn makes a lot less speed through the corner. So for Mitch Rollo, I think it's just hopefully the toe's all right, and if it is all right, he should be able to get out there, maybe not lead this thing, but at least be up there giving somebody a push, and being in the draft like that. As long as he's on the back bumper, that front nose shouldn't have any issue.
So your leader's back down pit side. A concern for Doug Roth could be that he did get some damage in that exchange. Question is, how much does he elect to stay down and get fixed? Or does he just go with the 4 tires, gas, and go? Right side tire's going to go up, though, for the driver of the number 43 Chevrolet, your race leader, down to the pit lane. He'll get his service, get back off and away, and he'll decide to leave a majority of that damage on the back end. But it is much better than in the scenario that it was sitting in before, and he'll be able to retain, at least at the moment. Looks like a good running position. Mitch Rollo out in front of him as well. Tyler Hurd getting set for a wave by. That's about 6 or so drivers coming at a turn number 4 behind the pace car. They'll now come down pit road with the lights off on the pace car in about a lap or two. They'll come down as those lap machines aren't able to get service until 1 lap after your leaders do. So the leaders now go by, and it is going to put Doug Roth into the number 2 spot, with which that damage is going to put him in a spot where outside lane, a little bit of damage could be tricky. Thomas, how bad is that aerodynamic issue going to affect him, though, really?
It's hard to say for certain. It's just we're gonna have to see what happens here on the next set of laps we run in the green. I mean, it doesn't look like the aero damage was not the aero damage, sorry, but the damage overall wasn't really hurting him as long as he had a stack of cars to drive with, and it seems like that's been the case with a lot of these guys. You know, the 29 has some right front damage. The 3 obviously was involved in an earlier incident, and his right front's a little damage, and he was up there. Matt Lacrosse, he has some damage on 70. He's got some little front end damage as well. It's just, I think it's just I don't think it's going to be so much the damage. I think it's going to be, is he going to lose just 2-3 miles an hour down the straightaway that might cost him? That's the only thing I can really see right now that seems to be affecting anybody that's got damage like that. And speaking of which, you know, we want to talk about all the cars that are damaged. We have to give a shout out to the 93 of EJ O'Rourke and the 14 of David Comstock. It's probably the cleanest cars left on this track right now, and that's saying a lot for the positions that they've been around. They've been around a couple wrecks, and they've been able to squeak through them pretty good. And hopefully, I haven't jinxed them yet. I'll take blame if anything does happen. But those two together have really done a good job tonight. And that 93, it's big points implications from him. He came into this race only 6 points back of Chad Cole, who currently sits in the 26th position right now as far as
31 laps down. Yeah, he has had a terrible night.
Exactly. So right now, if EJ could just come home clean and finish in the top 10, not only will he get the points lead, he'll have a nice big lead to go with it going into the final 3 races. Same thing with Matt Lacrosse. He came in 22 back. He finishes this race off with a good finish. He could be right back up in there too. And it, like Daytona, man, it's a mulligan track. If you use it once already, you can't use it again. And right now, it's biting Chad Cole pretty hard.
And Fontana, Chicago, and Homestead going to be the site of the next 3 races and the final 3 races. So funny how we talk about, once we get to this point, 6 races down, 4 to go at the start of tonight, Andy, how we slowly get a championship picture and then one race can change it. Chad Cole, where he's sitting right now, is not good, because that's going to put him almost a half a race entirely behind at 3 tracks, which aren't as much as a crapshoot as Daytona, is not a good place to be looking at yourself with just 3 races to go. So that's why, although it has been an up and down night, and we can talk all we want about how strange of a race it has been, and to a description how uncharacteristic a race has been for so many guys that we know that they know what they're doing, but just a couple of small mistakes keep biting these guys all night long. The overall picture, as Thomas mentioned, is that if you end up on the losing end of whatever happens tonight, it's very bad.
Oh, absolutely. You want to come out of these places unscathed, no problems, get a decent finish. That's how you maintain your points position. But for a lot of these guys, especially Chad Cole, it's a tough start.
This restart going to bridge us past 3/4 distance. It's the final 24. Green flag back in the air at Daytona, and at the front of the field, the 96, Mitch Rollo, brings us back through the green flag. Outside, led by Rhett McBride. It's Eckridge, Lacrosse, and O'Rourke inside of the top 5. Down to turn number 1 we go. 15 drivers on the lead lap.
I'm telling you, Evan, we've not seen the end of this tonight. They are closer now than they've been on any restart all night long. Rollo getting help on the inside from the Steel Horse. Number 70 is Scott Eckridge, and Mitch Rollo pulls to the inside, dropping out of this lead pack. That's going to hand the lead to Rhett McBride, who drops to the bottom of the racetrack. Rollo in trouble in turn 3.
He is slow on the apron, doing just 130 miles an hour, and I was trying to take a look at the restart to see if he would have got penalized for anything. I don't see a reason how, maybe a pit road penalty, but nonetheless, Mitch Rollo going to give up the race lead. He is not coming down pit side, so I'm not quite sure what happened, but he's now off of the race lead and back down to 15th. So just like that, Matt Lacrosse going to go to the top spot down low, not for long, top side. David Comstock, E.J. O'Rourke, big push out of 2, but a good defensive run, courtesy of the 2 behind. Rhett McBride pushing that 21 on the bottom, keeping him neck to neck.
Yeah, great job by Comstock on the outside. It looks like he might want to stay out there, trying to see if he can get E.J. O'Rourke cleared also. Right now, it's not going to happen, though, off of turn number 4. Here comes Lacrosse now. Lacrosse still not enough to gain that momentum back. Rhett McBride still just off his bumper just a bit, while E.J. O'Rourke is right up against the 14 car. That gives them the advantage again across the stripe right now. Comstock still your leader into 1.
And that's the outside of the racetrack where you can get a run, you can complete a pass, but normally if you don't get the pass done, you don't have that good a percentage to stay up on the outside. Now another run, down the super stretch they go. This one going to be the money shot. Comstock is clear. He wants to wait for that 93 behind him of E.J. O'Rourke to get clear as well. He will do so. 93 doesn't have enough of a run, and even with that being said, Comstock Thomas doesn't drop that 93 off. He thinks having help is better than having the inside position.
Well, those two are obviously working together. They know, they're obviously, de facto teammates for, all these series here. They've worked together well along with the Dwayne Vincent, all of them down there, Chad Cole, and it's just Comstock that feels like he doesn't want to abandon his teammate. But he also knows, that if he leaves behind that 93 will get help from the 3 and the 85 from behind him. So I think he's trying to play a strategy. He doesn't want to give up the lead here, but they're going to dive down. Now's the time. Oh, never mind, because unfortunately that 21 is right back underneath the 93. So we're coming down to the final laps. The only question is, how long are they going to be able to keep this dance up?
Yeah, and it's just a split second that the 93 could have jumped down, but based on what we've seen tonight, I don't really blame them as we take 20 to go to hesitating that little bit. The 3 adjusted Michaels behind them, so if Comstock and O'Rourke can get clear, it would be the 3 and then the 85 as Cisco Scaramuza taking over control of the outside of the racetrack. But that 20 with a Matt Lacrosse doing something we haven't seen a lot of guys do all night, and that is put up a fight by himself. The 2 of McBride was not on the bumper that time, but he still stayed door-to-door with the 93 of O'Rourke long enough to the point where they were not able to both get clear. Question then would become, Jacob, if you're that 14 to Comstock, I know you're trying to hang out with that 93. How long do you wait on the outside for him before right now you find yourself at a spot where next thing you know, the inside closes that gap and now you don't even have a shot. Your teammates to a point, but eventually you're going to have to start looking out for yourself. Apparently not yet at 19 to go. Look at the 29, Mike Rominger, 3 wide to turn number 1 all by himself.
Boy. Yeah, and that made me very nervous. It's still making me nervous. Rominger all alone up top as they work down the super stretch off turn number 2. Everybody playing squeeze play right here as we go 3 wide again. Cisco Scaramuza's in the middle of this mess. Scott Eckridge on the bottom of the racetrack now. Dan Murray's up there in the 3rd lane in the GameStop machine. The 5 car gets shuffled into no man's land, and it's still all over the place off turn 4.
The fine machine, the one that's trying to get up to him, that is Dan Murray, but it is that middle to high lane working right now that is actually the fastest. You see the 29 of Rominger, he's still up there, and he's still using that side draft. He's past the 43, the 85, and he's gotten to the 3. I'm going to think, though, that he's going to start to need some help if he wants to make a charge any further more than that, and right now, he just doesn't have it. He looked to try to get in line. 4 wide lap traffic. Thank God they caught him on a straightaway. They're able to squeeze on through. That hurts the run, though, that Rominger had, and you see, he's kind of trying to steal the draft off of the 85 from the 43 of Doug Roth, so it was a good run, but I think he needed help sooner than later, and now he's starting to fall back, and we'll be 2 wide by the time we get to 1.
Yeah, that's a great. I just love how the difference, you know, when you add 20 other cars to this pack, how much different the racing is, and so far these guys, I don't know what the mindset is of these drivers. I don't do it enough to be able to, you know, I guess to tell the difference between, you know, adding that many more cars behind you or not, but. Right now, man, just what an awesome job is. Rominger looks to the outside again to make it 3 wide. He got a pretty good run right there. See if he can use the side draft again. Oh, he's going to be in the wall there. Rominger in the wall in turn number 3. That's going to slow him down, put him back in behind Doug Roth in the 43 right there. But look at that lead pack. Look at O'Rourke giving that shove to David Comstock. They'll lead another lap here as we close in on the end of this thing.
And still not enough of a run, though, to jump to the inside of the track. It is still the 93 and still the 21, deadlocked for the number 2 position. And again, Lacrosse is able to pull away from that to a McBride, which, again, we were talking about all these cars being even. It's not the 21. If anything, I think it might be the 2 behind, trying to see if McBride had any damage. I don't see immediately some outside of the back bumper, but whatever it is, McBride just can't stay on the bumper now. Doug Roth going to get shuffled out of line. 43 car, 3 wide in turn number 4. And now he and Rominger swap spots because the 29's in the middle.
Yeah, and I think Doug got a piece of the wall there going into turn number 3. That if he didn't, you couldn't have put a piece of paper between the right side of that 43 machine and the outside safer barrier. It was very tight. As we watch this battle for the lead, it's a scrum still. 13 cars strong with 15 laps to go, 26 lead changes, 11 different drivers, and still David Comstock from the high lane leads the way. Thomas, are you surprised that these two, Comstock and O'Rourke, have been able to do this all on that outside lane?
No, I'm not. Honestly, I'm not, because those two work so well together that they've done this, and they always run well at these plate tracks. But the key factor in all this is they've got honestly, right now, they have that preferred line. You know, the inside cannot go. You have the 21, Matt Lacrosse, and then behind him, you've got 3 Steel Horse racing machines in Rhett McBride, Scott Eckridge, and Jason Swan there. Oh, we got the 85 in the wall. Oh, Dan Murray's and
it's Scaramuza hard in the wall in 1 and 2. He'll ride the fence all the way through turn number 2, but that car just shot straight up, and I'm assuming it had to be either netcode or some sort of a mechanical or technical issue for Cisco Scaramuza. He is now into the inside wall, and he's basically done for the night. No caution, and just like that, another driver out of the equation. Everybody splits again. It is still the 21 versus the 14 and the 93. Inside, and now 14 laps to go at Daytona, and we'll take a second look at that accident. Cisco Scaramuza hearing over the radio that it was a screen problem. Jacob, his screen blacked out on him. Happens a couple of times now and again on the sim. Thankfully, though, he's the only car involved and there's no caution.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because he had really made a nice rally from about 3 separate caution flags tonight that he had been. Unfortunately, the final strike going to be the one that gets him here. Now look at this. The outside lane has really been able to make something happen. That inside got disorganized for just a moment, and that's allowed David Comstock to really play both lanes and lead this party. 12 laps to go this time. Comstock really making a nice run, but all of a sudden he loses some momentum, and that's the closest Matt Lacrosse has been to the lead in the last 10 laps. Wheel to wheel for the top spot in 1.
This time by, going to be 11 laps to go. Close it in on the point where we get a caution. It'll put us down to the last couple of restarts left in time. But it is still a gridlock at the front of the field. I feel bad for everybody behind Lacrosse, O'Rourke, and Comstock. And you see Doug Roth 3 wide to turn number 3. This is the only way they can do anything because the 21, the 14, and the 93, Jacob, with all the movement we've seen 4 wide, you're out of room. There it is, Doug Roth, hard into the back of the 6, big accident in turn number 4, caution flag is out.
You knew with
matter of time.
You knew with Doug Roth trying to force that maneuver in the 3rd lane, Evan, eventually he was going to catch up to a lap car, and that's exactly what happened. I think that was the 6 of Tom Dreierling that he got into. And just, I was nervous the last 10 laps. I couldn't believe that he was able to do it by himself. But unfortunately, the closing rate too quick for him to be able to squeeze to the inside and make it 4 wide. And he caught the rear quarter panel of that Dreierling machine, and chaos ensues. About 6 of the lead pack collected in that one.
Yeah, and I don't blame him for going 3 wide either. We saw that earlier, and I said that I believe it was the 6 that we might have caught of Dreierling and maybe the 8 of Chad Cole, but we went 4 wide in the corner, or rather down the straightaway as opposed into the corner this time, so it worked. But the 14, the 93, and the 21, the point I was getting to, Jacob, is with all the movement, they have not moved. It's still been Lacrosse on the bottom, and it had still been Comstock and O'Rourke topside. Nobody could get by. The only way to get by was to go 3 wide. However, if you're Doug Roth, you got to be looking out in front of you and seeing that lap traffic in front before you make the move.
You really do, and that's the hard part. And Thomas, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, but it was so gridlocked that, like Evan said, I applaud the move that Roth was trying to make in order to get up there, but just one of those things where the timing just wasn't there.
Well, from a driver's perspective, I don't put any blame on Doug Roth. He was making it work. He was doing what he needed to do, and he found something in the draft. I'm honestly more upset with the 6 car right now. He was not on the pace. He knew he was, God knows, 20 miles an hour slower than everybody else, and they knew a pack was coming, and it's hard for me to say anything. He was 15, and the thing was, he was 15 laps down, so, I mean, I'm not trying to single him out, but it was just, it was similar to Brad Keselowski, and, the thing was last year, I believe, at Talladega. He was 7 laps down. What's he doing out on the track like that, Obviously, different scenarios. Keselowski had a quick car, and he was able to keep up with the pack, but Dreierling, he just was so much slower. I don't know why he was out there in the first place, and it just took out a lot of cars. So, I mean, I can't agree, and I can't disagree with it, but as far as if I win Doug Roth's position, I'm pretty upset with that 6 car more than anything else.
Hey, Evan, how about timing and scoring, too, with the way that caution came out? That actually allows Matt Lacrosse to assume the lead here with 10 laps to go. He's only led 3 laps all night long, lap 35, lap 77, and now this most recent lap at lap number 90. I'm impressed at this, but in a way, I have to wonder if this doesn't actually work out in David Comstock's favor, because now it puts both of these guys in effect right where they were before this last caution flag. Lacrosse on the inside lane, Comstock on the outside lane with their preferred pushers behind them. So you got to wonder if maybe Comstock didn't feel like something was coming and maybe yield just enough to put himself in position for this last restart. I think the 14 is in the catbird seat now.
It's kind of funny because, we talk about how the 21 really hasn't led that many laps, but you look at it and, based on at least what we've been seeing, it has felt like it has been the 21 leading and the 14 and the 93 chasing, when in reality it's almost been the opposite. But again, nobody can just sort things out. There'll be 8 laps to go the next time by we come across the start-finish line. So this is very well going to be the final restart on the night, Jacob, and I think you've caught up pit side with one of the drivers that was just out in the middle of all of that.
We've got him on our trackside communications right now, actually, and he was involved about 2 laps before that big crash took out a bunch of the front runners. Cisco Scaramouza. Cisco, you had rallied from about 2 separate caution flags before this to get up and in contention again, and it looked like everything bottlenecked around you. What happened?
Yeah, I went into turn 1 and everything just stopped and my screen froze, and it sucked because, we had such a good car. The LSRTV Chevrolet was so good. If you had told me, 20 laps ago I'd be fighting for maybe possibly leading this thing, I wouldn't have believed you. But with all the damage we had, we just stuck up there. I knew we were good in the pack. We couldn't really lead or anything, but I was just determined to stay there, and just fortune fell the wrong way today, and just technical issues, but we had a great run there.
You gotta hate it, and I know, right before you had your technical gremlins come up and bite here, this last run with Comstock being out front and be able to lead it from the outside lane, it just looked like it was so difficult for anybody to get traction and pass. How bottlenecked was it in that lead pack, knowing that you had somebody like Doug have to go to that third lane to even try and get any traction?
Yeah, for me it was a case of I was sitting at around 240 on both my temperatures. I really couldn't push the 3 a whole lot, so I was just kind of sitting there biding my time, and that didn't really help. But I think really the 2 people you got to watch out for is just going to be Comstock and EJ if they're still in it. Those 2 are teammates and they're up there, and I think they're the ones who are probably going to bring home your win tonight.
And they line up 2nd and 4th on the outside lane for this restart. We'll throw it back over to Evan as we get set for the green flag. I think 7 laps to go when we go racing here this time.
It will be 7 laps to go at the Daytona International Speedway. What that means is we're not necessarily done tonight. If we do see another yellow, Andy, no green, white checkers after 4 to go. So if we get a wreck in the next 2 to 3 laps off of the restart, we may just get a 1 or 2 lap shootout. Once we take 5 to go, it's no holds bar from there. The next flag would end it, but there is still a chance that this is not the final time we'll take a green flag.
Now, wouldn't that make it interesting?
One more curveball into the mix just for safe measure.
Yeah, I think these
might as
leaders
well.
have to drive through a few more caution laps at this speed. We'll see what happens, though.
The base car going to get down, and I'm sure going to get down, get out of the way. It is going to be Matt Lacrosse inside of the front row. David Comstock topside. 11 drivers lead lap to do battle. Green flag back in the air. 7 laps to go at Daytona.
Yeah, and how about the run for Comstock as they nearly wadded up behind him. Jason Swan really squirrely down through the second half of the tri-oval to turn 1. Comstock leads lap 93 on the restart, but how about Lacrosse on the bottom lane? Loses his drafting partner. Now, Rhett McBride to the top side, gonna block in the 14 and the 93, and McBride wants a piece of the lead. Lacrosse going backwards, the 2 out front for the first time tonight.
Oh, the 14 to the bottom of the racetrack. David Comstock out-jumped the 2 of Rhett McBride. He ducked to the inside of him as McBride tried to come down with him, and just like that, it's Comstock to P1, and McBride still stuck topside. What a move.
It really was one heck of a move right there. Comstock leads the lap for 94 complete, 6 to go, and I think the 29th or 30th different lead change that we've had tonight. But now the teammates are split up. It's Comstock on the bottom and O'Rourke pushing McBride on the top side with 6 laps to go. Make it 5.5 down the Daytona Superstretch.
And the outside's got to regain that momentum, get back and get back on it. But I'll tell you what, if you're a little bit hesitant about pinching somebody down, and you're that 2 machine, there's no hesitation to now pinch that 14 to David Comstock. And Comstock did what he had to do, because this time by at 5 laps to go, a yellow now ends this race. You can't sit back in second and wait to make that move, Andy, till 2 to go or 3 to go, and then have a caution come out before you make the move. Basically, he did what he had to do. The 2 machine to his disadvantage, albeit, but David Comstock is trying to win this race.
Of course he's trying to win this race. Who straps into a car not to win? And Comstock did a bold move right there as the 70 actually gets pushed out. Scott Eckrich now gets pushed out on the high side. He's going to fall to the tail end of this pack. And look at the 92 car now all of a sudden into the mix there. Brian Terry started this race in the 9th position. It looks like he's going to run right now about that 6th spot right now. He's the 3rd car in line now on the top side. Comstock still leading the train down on the bottom.
Yeah, he's leading the train. 4 laps to go this time by, and it's still deadlock 2x2 for the win at Daytona. We've got just under 10 miles to go. The run on the high lane, Rhett McBride wants a piece of it. He's getting a good shove from E.J. O'Rourke, and you've even got the 92 of Brian Terry. Evan, I think whichever line Terry decides to go with is going to be the line that ultimately wins this race. You see him drop to the bottom, but now look at Jason Swan come up to help that outside lane. Now it's 3 cars in line on the bottom and the top.
There's a big difference between having 2 guys down low or 4 guys topside. And right now, Brian Terry on the inside is keeping that bottom lane in front. Look at the 14, though, Comstock. He's going to have to protect the racetrack to the inside. 3 wide. What a move by Rhett McBride. He'll take the race lead at 3 to go, and he leaves Comstock out to dry.
They had to do something, and Evan, that's exactly where it happened. Comstock leads at the stripe, but 3 laps to go. It'll be 2.5 by the time they get to the back straightaway. McBride now with Lacrosse. He blocks to the bottom of the racetrack. Brian Terry picks it up. Comstock to the outside with no help. They're 3 wide, headed for 31 degrees of banking in turn 3.
And unfortunately for the 14 of David Comstock, he moved up off of the safety of the double yellow line. He got deked out to the inside of the racetrack. McBride made the move, and next thing you know, Comstock back and outside of the top 5. 2 laps to go at Daytona. Popsicle sticks in the air. They'll get the white flag the next time around. It's McBride, Terry, and followed by Cadell on the inside. Top side is the 21 of Matt Lacrosse and a 93 of E.J. O'Rourke. Dead heat for the race lead in turn 2 for the penultimate time.
How about this piece? The 2 of Rhett McBride just led this race for the first time at the stripe all night long. And it's a good time to do it as we're coming to the white flag this time by into 3 and 4. It's a dead heat. They were drafting partners 20 laps ago. Now McBride and Lacrosse fighting for the win off turn 4.
Advantage going to swing to the advantage of the inside of the racetrack, though. The 11 machine ducks down in line. That is now 5 drivers on the bottom and 2 on the outside. Catbird seat may very well be, Andy, in favor of the 92 of Brian Terry, depending on how long that outside stays up there.
This is unbelievable right now. They're starting to really close in on the side pinch right there by Matt Lacrosse on the outside. For the final time on the back straightaway, E.J. O'Rourke trying to give something to the 21 as they head to turn 3.
Into turn 3 for the final time. McBride is the only man alone out front, getting the push from Brian Terry. Evan, I don't think anybody's close enough. Comstock taking a look, can't get there off 4.
Terry gonna look high. They'll wreck behind and hang on behind them to the outside. It'll be a drag race to the start finish line. It'll be a dead heat, but it's not enough. Rhett McBride, bottom of the racetrack, and to hold on, he'll win the Daytona 250.
9/1000ths of a second at the stripe. Brian Terry did everything. He side drafted him all the way to the line and comes up a skosh short. I think since his hiatus, this is the first RSR win for Rhett McBride in just about an entire calendar year, Evan, if not a little bit more. That's a long-awaited return to victory lane, and how sweet it is.
And Brian Terry, deservingly so, going to get a tap from David Comstock in turn number 1. What a challenge. It looked like he had him, and there might have been a little bit of contact, I don't know, at the pit road cone that might have slowed the 92 down, but they got awfully close, and he just ran out of steam, and it was good because the 2 McBride didn't have to come up off of the white line, Thomas, to block or anything. That was 2 guys on each other's door going right at it clean to the stripe.
Oh, man, my heart's racing right now. Oh,
you happy you stuck around? I think that finish was worth it. I don't know.
Hell yeah, man. Steel Horseman back in victory lane, man. That's my teammate. John came back and finished 5th. Jason finished 7th, man. That was a great finish. All the cautions, everything that went through it, man. You couldn't ask for a better finish from that, and I'm biased. Obviously, I'm happy to see my teammate win that. That was a great race. Oh man, oh man.
And it's nearly 2 hours after we took the green flag, but it is Rhett McBride by just 9/1000ths of a second. Your winner at Daytona International Speedway. We'll talk with him, we'll talk with more, and we'll get you set now for the final 3 races on this Icebreaker Winter Series campaign, with the LSRTV post-race show coming right up following tonight's coverage. So we'll step away, we'll be back in a moment. More coverage of the Real Sim Racing Icebreaker Winter Series presented by Hippie's Paint Shop, coming to you on iRacing Live and on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
It's been a very long offseason. Teams have changed, sponsors have changed, colors and all, but one thing that hasn't, they like to mash the loud pedal. Green flag is out on the 2015 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series season.
iRacing is the ideal platform for these broadcasts because we have the best racers, the best online racers in the world, and we have such a variety of racing, from NASCAR to Grand Prix style racing, sports car, endurance racing. We do it all.
Since 2010, the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series has been the absolute pinnacle of road racing in a simulated form. Great start then by Yakoda from the front. They're packing up behind him one. They're going to be 4 wide as they come down into turn number 1 for the first time. Will they make it through that first corner? You can see they're funneling through the center S's. It looks as though everyone is just about made it through. We have got ourselves some contact though, Rachel.
Side by side going into turns 3 and 4. Humpy's got the advantage with Ottinger's not going to.
Oh, he got into him!
Ottinger gets into the 58, turns right into him, and that ends Ottinger's run.
We do a lot of live broadcasts now. Every Tuesday is NASCAR night, so alternating Tuesdays we do the Peak Antifreeze Series, and on the other Tuesdays the B-Class Series, which is the Xfinity cars, and sometimes we'll even do some short track racing depending on the schedule. Every other Saturday we do the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, so the best road racers we have. And we also broadcast some special events, including the Endurance Championship, which is part of the Road Warrior Series. So we broadcast the Daytona 24, the Sebring 12 hour, we'll do the Watkins Glen 6 hour, several other races along there. And then of course the iRacing Pro Racing Champions, which is usually our biggest and most watched event of the year.
That is short track racing, and that's how awesome this sim is, Joe. That's something you see on TV on highlight reels, and we just saw it here, live.
We invite iRacers who are real world racers. They compete every December. Guys like Alex Gurney, Justin Wilson, Scott Speed, Ron Capps, the list goes on. Really some big name drivers from...
We're back live at the virtual Daytona International Speedway, and I will repeat, 2 hours to be decided by 9/1000ths of a second. It is Rhett McBride over top of Brian Terry, your winner in tonight's RSR Icebreaker Winter Series Daytona 250. Happy to have you sticking along for the call for the LSRTV post-race show from the World Center of Racing. Evan Pasoko, Jacob Seelman, Andy Kessler, Thomas George along with you. And to catch up with our first podium finisher, Jacob, you're down pit side with Matt Lacrosse, who looked like he was primed and ready to take it. He'll have to settle for the third step on the podium tonight, and you're with him.
I'm telling you, for about 5 of the last 7 laps or so, it looked like it was going to be the 2 of McBride and the 21 of Lacrosse side by side all the way to the stripe. And Matt, you know, you and Rhett were drafting partners for a good portion of the latter stages of that race. And then 4 or 5 laps to go, Rhett makes a bonsai move up the middle to separate Comstock from the lead. And it just looked like from there, it was every man for himself. Talk about the last few laps, because it looked like a whale of a time.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. On that last restart, I didn't like being the leader. And so I was actually on the radio with David and EJ, and I'm just like, all right, I'm going to go on green just to keep it all together so no one gets a huge run on me. And Rhett must have timed that green just right. And he gave me a little jolt and pushed me out ahead of those guys on the outside and went to the top, and then that was all she wrote. He kept her out there, and then David got back around him, and and David went up to go get up in front of him and went to the middle. And yeah, when there's a couple laps to go, it's utter chaos.
It was chaos turned to great racing. Was there anything you could have done on that last lap to get back to Rhett and Brian there and be able to try and make it happen for the win? Or once you got behind him there, was there nothing really more that you could do?
Well, I knew Brian was pushing Rhett so hard, and I had EJ right behind me, and this setup gets a little tight after a long run on the tires, believe it or not. So EJ he was so tight he couldn't stay behind me and push me and like everyone else was on the bottom. So I was just trying to hold on and just hope that he could push me and get a top 5, top 3, whatever. I didn't think I could get him. On newer tires maybe, but not on old tires. It was just too tight.
It's been a wild night. I know it was a lot of fun. You were a part of the battle all the way through this race, led it late, and just come up with a third-place finish. I know you can't do it by yourself. Sponsors, shout-outs, supporters, who you need to thank?
Well, I want to thank David, EJ, Chad Cole, Justin Michael, all on the radio, talking to each other and stuff. We had a good time. Quick Car Racing Products. Go Wolverines. They're on the car for the entire Icebreaker series. And I want to thank my mom because last time she watched one of my races and I got interviewed and she said, well, I'm really upset with you because you didn't thank your mom. She's like, always thank your mother. So thanks, Mom.
He gets it in right. You've learned the lesson well, Matt. Third place finish, and we got 3 races to go. We'll see you next week.
All right, thanks, fellas.
That's Matt Lacrosse. Bottom step of the podium, finishes third, and going to throw it up pit road just a little ways further. The guy who comes up that close and not quite enough, Andy Kessler. I want to hear the story from Brian Terry. 9 1/1000ths of a second.
Yeah, you're not talking much when you're talking 9 1/1000ths of a second from pulling off a win in the RSR Icebreaker series. And Brian Terry, it's been a sluggish start for you and your team all season long. You come home and you come into this this race here, Daytona. Obviously a strong race for yourself. Tons of wrecks, tons of carnage. You dodged a whole bunch of things out there tonight. And then it came down to the end there. What a great little sprint. Talk us through that last few laps.
Unbelievably, I'm actually surprised my car still had as much speed as it did. I mean, I was caught up in a couple of those, especially the very first one where it gave me significant damage, but my pit crew did a hell of a job getting the thing fixed up. Still fast while pushing somebody, but I mean, going through those last couple of laps, I just kept my foot in and hoped that it didn't blow because my gauges were flashing those the entire couple of laps that were left, and just managed to hold it together for that long.
It's I've been obviously privileged to run tons of races with you, broadcast a bunch of races with you, but I think ultimately this was one of the best ones I've seen, one of the greatest finishes I've seen too, and you are part of it, and it was just fun to see it. Good to see you back up there this high in the standings.
Yeah, it's been a struggle over here in RSR, but I mean, I'm still here, still duking it out as much as I can, trying to accumulate as much points as I possibly can. We got a great group of people that run here for the most part, outside of when we get these early wrecks. And once we get those early wrecks out of the way, you can finally get some good racing in. Just hopefully you can avoid all these unnecessary wrecks, I guess you could say. But it does feel good to finally be back up here again, to at least be talking to you guys and showing off the power that Aegis Motorsports has.
Absolutely, and take a little pressure off you, give you a little momentum running into the final 3 races. Well, Brian, a second place finish, 9 1/1000ths from the win, but obviously sponsor shout-outs and a pretty cool paint scheme for you here tonight.
Yeah, we all have Laura in our hearts right now, and we really do hope that she gets better soon. We're all pulling for her, and for the most part, I would like to thank, first off, Julio Trozado for giving me a shot here on Aegis Motorsports to run in this series. I'd like to thank my teammates, all of them, for just working hard to keep us going. and you guys for putting on a good show, and the boys at RSR for putting up a great series.
We appreciate it, Brian. And 3 weeks ago, we'll see you next week.
10-4, Andy. Thank you.
Rob, there you go. Second place finisher here tonight in the 92. That's Brian Terry, but I believe there's somebody that's been a little dry from victory lane for a long time, and Evans caught up with tonight's winner.
By the numbers that we're looking at, for the first time since May of 2014 in the Full Throttle Cup Series at Talladega, it is going to be Rhett McBride back into Gatorade victory lane, and he did it in style, again by 9/1000ths of a second, in a side-by-side drag race to the line. Winner of the Daytona 250 is Rhett McBride. Rhett, congratulations to you, man. That was a hell of a finish, and from 24th on the grid, and based on the fact that this race was grueling for a lot of guys out there, you definitely had to work hard to get this W. How'd you do it?
I just survived. I mean, I just stuck around long enough to have a chance there at the end.
You got to be in the place to be able to get the job done, and you did so. Walk us through the end of this one, because we come back to take the green flag. It's a restart relatively late in this one, and the conversation is, when we take that green flag, that everybody's talking about the 14, the 21, and the 93. And the one driver in the top four outside of those three numbers that really didn't get talked a lot about was you, because for a lot of the time there inside of the final 20 and 15 laps, we were talking about how Comstock on the outside as well as O'Rourke, they were trying to get around the 21 of Lacrosse, and Lacrosse was the constant on the bottom. You started behind him, but you didn't want to get trapped down there. You moved up as soon as you could.
Yeah, me and my teammates were talking about, I just kept noticing Matt was having a little trouble off of 2. He was getting a little tight, and I just didn't think that me and Matt could, cover those 2 cars, because they were quick, and they're, I knew they were teammates. So after a couple laps back there, I knew I had to do something different. So at that point, it was trying to get, Comstock and EJ split up, because I felt like if those 2 could stay together, the rest of us would, just be fighting for crumbs. So I had an opportunity to do that, and it worked out.
I'm sure in the fashion that you did it doesn't hurt the story at all, but what does it mean for you to get back into RSR victory lane tonight?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I just kind of had gotten last year, first part of the year, just got burnt out on this, and was with a team, and it just kind of fell apart. And so when they came out with the dynamic track, I was like, well, maybe let me get back in and, maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more. And I did, but I didn't have a team. So I got to talking with Dan, and I've always had a good relationship. So I asked him if they had anything open at Steel Horse. And man, ever since I hooked up with those guys, I've been having a blast. I've had more fun lately sim racing than I've had in the last 2 years. And it's just, I can't say how happy I am to be a part of this team. It's just awesome.
Well, you guys definitely bounced back after a lot of you guys as well had some attrition tonight, and quite a few top 10, top 15 finishes as well. But you end up on the top step, and I'm not going to ask you if you're going to be able to get the job done next week, because I want to let you enjoy this one for a little bit, but we do have to note that we're going to be back at it right away next Monday night at California. So from Auto Club Speedway, I'm not going to ask if is that the track that you're going to get your next win. I'll say, is that a track that you guys can be competitive at like you have been the last couple of basically years all the way through Talladega? It's not like you guys have been out of the conversation. You just missed it a little bit each night. Tonight you capitalize. Is California a place where you guys can have a good night at?
Well, I feel pretty good at most of the tracks. I just been last year and first part of this year, this season, this is some bad luck, And, but, on nights where everything comes together, I think if we're hanging around at the end, anything can happen. And I feel like I'm running better now just because I'm with a good group of guys, and, I'm not worried about anything. It kind of frees you up just to have fun. And when I have fun, I feel like I'm faster. So, yeah, I think we can do well there. And I'd like to go back to back. That'd be great.
Well, it was a whale of a move just to jump out of line, and then you split them 3 wide. You had to work for this one, and I want to congratulate you on it, Rhett. Thanks for sticking around and chatting with us. Sponsors, the shout-outs to people behind the scenes. Who makes this possible for you and the team?
Yeah, well, obviously, I want to thank my team, Steel Horse Racing, all the guys over there, Swanee and Dan and, everybody, Jonathan and new teammate Scott. It was just a whole group of great guys over there, and also HPP Pedals. I also want to thank you guys in the booth for putting the stuff on for us, the admins at RSR, and just want to let Laura know from our team that we're thinking about her. We know she's got a tough fight ahead, but if she fights as hard as she is fast on the racetrack, then she'll have no problem with this. So we're all pulling for her, we're praying for her, and can't wait her to get back up to full song, and that's it.
Well, I know that she appreciates it, Red. Again, thanks for sticking around and chat with us. Congrats to you. Congrats to the team. Enjoy this one, and we look forward to seeing you guys again next Monday night.
Will do, Evan. Thanks, buddy.
Again, tonight's winner at Daytona, Rhett McBride, back at Real Sim Racing Victory Lane with a win in the Daytona 250. What a finish. Rocky race at times, but it was worth it. 9 1,000ths of a second, one of the closest restrictor plate races in recent time. But RSR history brings this one to a close. And final thoughts, guys, on what was a very unique Daytona race. Thomas, I feel like no matter how the race goes, we can call it unique. Tonight was unique. What were your thoughts?
It's just, to me, it looked like it was just any other kind of race, not necessarily unique. Just a lot of guys trying to find real estate early on, and typical Daytona, just it was good and it was bad. A little bit more bad than good than probably what we wanted to see, but some days you're going to have these kind of, races at Daytona where people are going to think a little bit too far ahead, or they're not going to think ahead or at all, just trying to get every little bit of position they can. But overall, it was a good race. I'm not just saying that because Red won, obviously, but
it didn't hurt, though.
No, it didn't hurt. It was that's one of my favorite parts. Probably my favorite part of the whole night. But
there you go.
But it's just you're gonna, the way that the cars are this year with the Xfinity series, they're just really tight, and I kind of expected some things like this to happen, and I kind of wish the cars were a little bit more looser, a little bit more able to stake to the ground. But you got to take what you can get, and even though we had a bad first half of the race, the second half got better, and we had a great race at the finish there.
It was an exciting finish, Andy. The 2 machine starts on the bottom, goes up high, now finds himself behind the 14. David Comstock is no stranger to defending a race lead, and the 2 broke his ankles there to take the race lead at 3 to go. It was a whale of a move.
By far. And you know what? I want to give a big shout out to those top 7, 8 guys there that were in that pack there at the end in that final restart. And, despite all the cautions, all the maybe, unnecessary wrecks, maybe, the guys being a little too anxious early on, despite all that, you look at the group of guys that were in that top 10 there that gave us that finish right there. I mean, that's just what it's all about. Despite all that stuff, these guys can come out here and put on a finish like that. That's just unbelievable, and that just shows a lot for the league and for the type of drivers that are here and that can get it done week after week. So it was a great race. It's going to be a long week of Daytonas, I think, and plate tracks as we did it Friday, Saturday. Now we did it tonight and tomorrow and Wednesday. So, I mean, it's going to be a long
Friday,
day.
too, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, Friday.
If you like Daytona, you know where to be. We'll be here.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's a whole lot of plate tracks this week, but no, it's a great way to start it off. We had a great one Saturday and Friday, and then again tonight. So no, it's just a big hats off to the guys that were there at the end, and they put on a whale of a finish, and good for them.
Yeah, week to week, it's always exciting, and the next 3 Monday nights consecutively we'll use to close out this 2015-2016 Icebreaker Winter Series campaign. Do want to thank a lot of people behind the scenes that are into things as well. Some of the big sponsors that support Real Sim Racing, not only on Monday nights, but Wednesday nights as well. Gary Mercer, Truck at iRacing.com, DisabledRacers.com, Derek Spear Designs at Race Chaser Online as well. A big shout out to ISRTV and Lions Club International. We roll to round number 6 next Monday night. Jacob, that's going to be at Fontana's Auto Club Speedway. What are we going to be expecting at round 8?
A completely different experience than what we had tonight. I'll tell you that much. There's still going to be some draft. It's not going to be anywhere close to what we saw tonight, but I do still think you're going to see a myriad of different drivers in contention. Man, what a finish, though, tonight. Rhett and Brian both. I don't think we could have asked for a better show right down to the end. For me, this is probably, I think, the best plate track finish that the league's had in the last year, Evan. It's been a great ride. I enjoyed being topside for this one tonight, and I'm looking forward to Fontana, another really fun little racetrack.
And as the RSR haulers roll out and we keep planted here, as we said, we got plenty of action coming up at Daytona. The championship standings now through 7 races have E.J. O'Rourke atop Matt Lacrosse by 13 for P1 and 2, and Chad Cole is third in the overall championship. On behalf of everybody at LSRTV, want to thank you for tuning in, and a big thanks to everybody as well for all the support the last couple of days, and for all the drivers out there running the special paint schemes tonight. We know Laura appreciates it, and we want to thank you for your continued support, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night as we close out the NASCAR iRacing.com Pro Series right here in Daytona. So until next time, on behalf of the entire LSRTV team, for myself, Evan Pasoko, for Jacob Seelman, Andy Kessler, Thomas George, and LSRTV's executive producer, Laura Lawson, congratulations to Rhett McBride. He's back at RSR Victory Lane tonight at Daytona. We'll see you tomorrow night for the Pro Series finale right here on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.